Calling the meeting order at 5:50. Board of Selectmen is just going to start the interview with Steve Hartford, town manager candidate. He'll be here in 1 second.
Time's up.
Pardon me. I found out at the alternative energy meeting last night that this building has a lot of mold in it, which explains
Oh.
why I am constantly congested.
The whole
minute-
thing or the new
this.
addition? Yeah.
No, I haven't seen the report, although they were gonna forward it to everybody, and I'm now on the distribution list, but, in the report that they were giving last night, they talked about it, so.
Come on in, Mr. Hartford. Have a seat.
Yes,
Hey, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
How you doing?
fine.
Good. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You tired yet?
A little bit. Been a busy day. Haven't had any downtime.
So I
Okay.
heard.
Yes.
Take a deep breath.
Okay.
We're going to start right in. So the
Sure.
first question, how do you see the OPEB issue? Is this like a credit card debt that would run up, or is it like a long-term mortgage liability? Do you feel Cohasset should do more than, quote, pay-as-you-go, unquote, that is, start funding the OPEB stabilization fund with a percentage of the normal costs, or even 100% of normal costs going forward, eventually funding all OPEB costs out of the OPEB stabilization fund?
We should put them up on the thing for you, so.
No, I mean, there's a lot of words, but it's an issue that I'm very familiar with. Westerly did fund OPEB. We were actually the first community in the state to actually establish an OPEB trust fund and fund it annually. We did not fund it at 100%. It's not a credit card. When you say should it be like a credit card debt, to me that's a negative perception on the finance. So I would say no. In Cohasset, I would probably recommend that you fund the OPEB costs annually and probably work on a graduated basis to achieve 100% of the actuarial cost on an annual basis that you pay that. So in other words, maybe start at 50% and work your way up to 100% over 5 years or something like that. I guess it depends on the other budget pressures, which I'm not altogether familiar with, but I would become familiar with. So if I were involved with a budget for fiscal 15, I would recommend absolutely some contribution to the OPEB trust fund.
Very
I
good.
think it's important. I think that's one of the time bombs, probably the biggest time bomb fiscally for any community in Massachusetts or elsewhere is the long-term post-employment benefits cost to the taxpayer. You got to do two things. You got to fund it properly, and you got to reform it on the back end.
Thank you.
Can I follow
Yeah,
up on that?
sure.
Talk to me a bit, or talk to us a bit, about the types of reforms that you're referring to. So you talk about reforming it on the back end.
You got to move out of taxpayer-funded post-employment benefits. You got to get there. Whether it's now, whether it's 5 years from now, whether it's 10 years from now, people coming into the system, taxpayers cannot afford to continue to fund post-employment benefits. There's got to be something different. I mean, those costs are, the long-term costs are, it's an overused phrase, but unsustainable. We're seeing it now across the board here in New England, and Cohasset, in my opinion, is no different. There's going to be challenges to costs in providing for education, providing for upgrades in infrastructure and water and sewer and other infrastructure costs that you're not going to be able to meet if the budget gets subsumed by long-term employee costs. There's no reason why, as long as you can secure good staff under condition A, that you have to pay them condition be, because that's the way we've always done it.
No. I appreciate your approach to it. The question I have is, in follow-on to my last, is were you able to head in that direction in Westport?
Westerly.
I'm sorry, my apologies.
Yes.
Westerly.
That's fine. Yes, actually, when I was, during the time that I was town manager, we actually funded, between our annual contribution and our investment gain in our fund, we were actually able to pay fully for the pension, the annual pension benefits and the post-employment benefits. So, in terms of investing in OPEB, we were probably only 30% funded in our OPEB trust fund, and we were maybe contributing 80% towards the annual actualized costs per year, but we still were paying out less than we were taking in on an annual basis. That's the investment side of it. The reform side of it is, yes, we moved, actually in the mid-90s, we moved to a cap on post-employment benefits for police officers, and in around 96 they were capped at $6,000 a year, which at that time was a lot of money. But now it seems like peanuts for a family health benefit, $6,000 a year, but that's all we were paying. And then in the first contract that I negotiated, which was in 2009, we ended that for all people coming into the system. So there was no employer-provided benefits post-retirement.
Okay.
So yeah, we were heading in that direction. And we didn't have it for our administrative staff, our non-exempt, our exempt staff. We didn't have any post-employment benefits.
Does that mean you didn't have any?
I didn't have any. No, I didn't have a pension. I didn't have post-employment benefits. No, I was strictly a defined contribution. There was a contribution to a 457 plan for my retirement as manager, which I took with me as a rollover.
And did you find that affected the base salaries? I mean, when you had no post-retirement benefits, did that require the base salaries to increase in
No.
order to attract a pool?
No,
No.
not. I mean, I was manager 09 to 13, so it was during recession. So it's hard to judge it based on that. Obviously, it was easy to attract. We always attracted a lot of good candidates. But I think that's where the public sector is not. It doesn't have sometimes doesn't have the flexibility because of state law and regulation, but also because of public sector thinking, is that we don't react to the needs of attracting good candidates. We make decisions based on what's come before us. So if employees before get X benefits, that's what the employees after get. And you can't do that anymore because we can't afford what we've got now. Just for the employees that we got now, we can't pay. We don't know how we're going to pay for that in 20 years. So reform's got to come now. It can't wait. It's always got to be the manager, whoever's leading the town, the board of selectmen and others. Every budget year, there's got to be a focus on reform, and restructuring, and reorganization in the budget cycle.
And
Go ahead.
sorry, I'm going off in a different tangent.
Well, if it's OPEB related, I think we can follow up. And then,
And I don't mean to say this in terms of that I would tell you what to do. I'm just mean this is my thinking on government, and this is what this is my philosophy of governing, because I've been in the private sector and I've been on the outside, I've been on the inside, and I've been I think sort of in government during under fire with revenues on the retreat and having to pay the bills and educate the school children, so.
thank you. Diane?
Now that you've spent some time in Cohasset and met many of our residents and employees, why do you want to be Cohasset's next town manager? What unique qualities do you have that you think we need? And has your answer evolved on why you want to be town manager from the time you first applied to today?
Well, yes. I mean, I didn't know much about the town when I first applied. I knew that it was a strong community, relatively strong financially, without a lot of difficult social and public safety and other issues that some larger cities or some maybe working class or lower income communities have, so sort of maybe less challenging issues there, good compensation, maybe future opportunities for me in the state of Massachusetts. That's probably why I was interested in the beginning. Now, now that I know more about the town, I mean, what I've learned about the town, I really like. I still don't really have a good handle on the local political situation. I don't think I'm going to understand that until I'm here for some time.
Martha hasn't figured it out.
Yeah,
right?
but I mean, that's going to be there in any community.
Right.
I think you got a great staff. I personally think everyone I met, very friendly. They seem capable. They seem outgoing. They're willing to talk to me. They're willing to participate in the process, which is a lot. So sometimes in municipalities or other government structures, you got people that, don't want to come out from behind their desks or their counters and just don't, just leave me out of it. And I've felt very welcome. The town is there's no denying it's physically a beautiful town right on the shoreline, and has some beautiful homes, some beautiful, I'm a history buff, so I'm very interested in your historic town hall and the efforts to preserve and renovate it, the future efforts. I'd be very interested in that. I was very interested in that in Westerly. We had a beautiful town hall. I was very proud of it. I was proud to work there. You got some great iconic historic buildings here, the New England nature of it. I mean, it reminds me of where I grew up in Easton. I think it's a great town. I would feel fortunate to be able to work in a town like this. What do I think I can bring to the town? I think I keep going back to my temperament. I think I have the temperament for the job. It's a very challenging job because of the fact that there's so many different decision-making structures within a town like this in terms of commissions, advisory commissions, budget commissions, board of selectmen, school committee. I think it takes a certain type of a person, a lot of patience, a good listener, someone who has a very even temperament, who doesn't react quickly, who is not too overly protective of his or her territory. I think that's important to be successful in a manager's job. But on the other hand, you need to be firm, but you need to be decisive. I feel as though I'm decisive, although I'm careful about my decisions. I feel as though I can be decisive. I find, because I come from the profession of lawyers, and I find that sometimes I wonder how lawyers sometimes seem overly cautious to me, and I'm like, well, I have to keep reminding myself I'm a lawyer too, because I want to move an organization forward. So I don't just want to stay out of the line of fire. I'm inclined to get involved, and I've been criticized for that in the past. Big policy decisions, big undertakings by the community, taking a leadership role, willing to stand out in front and talk about it to the taxpayers, to town meetings and the like. I'm inclined to do that, and I think that's important for a manager. I think a manager has to be an engaged leader to be effective. I think what distinguishes me maybe from the others that you've selected as finalists is that I am a New Englander. I come from New England. I grew up in Connecticut. I had my career in Rhode Island. I went to school briefly in Massachusetts, but I know Massachusetts well, I think. I grew up skiing in Vermont and now in New Hampshire. I think I fit well into the New England model. I understand New England well. I'm comfortable in New England. I want to be in New England. And two, I've been a chief executive a short time, 5 years, but by the standards of my profession, fairly stable 5 years. And so I think that's distinguishes me a little bit from my competitors. I'm able to relocate here. I'm sure they are as well. But I don't know. I guess I answered your question or some of it.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Martha?
Yeah. We discussed before HR,
Yes.
and I'd like you to go into more detail because we have to start from ground zero. We have some analysis that was done by our town council. And have you experience in creating a program? If you have, how would you do it? What kinds of things like you think belongs in it? It may be maybe boilerplate a little bit, but I'd like to.
Yeah,
talk
sure.
about how it is
I
in
didn't.
Westerly.
I didn't create the Human Resources Office in Westerly, but I did immediately come to understand its value, especially in handling my role in managing human resources, personnel, and I helped the office evolve through a consolidation effort with the school department. And I actually mentioned it in my meeting with some of the staff this afternoon when I met with the superintendent and other commission members that to me, it would be a great opportunity right off the bat to try to work on a joint effort with the superintendent to create some human resources structure, because I don't think there's a lot of it in the school department, if there's any human resource professionals there. And maybe there's a way that we can share professional staff to deal with human resources issues. But I mean, this is the type of thing that it's a very complex society. I don't need to tell any of you, but state law, federal law, dealing with human resources and personnel and benefits and the like, benefit management and privacy issues, support for staff. Overseeing staff, performance measurement of staff. You need to have some people with some professional credentials, some people that understand the issues. Those are not simple issues that can just be based on gut instinct or judgment. And a manager, a superintendent, or anyone else managing human resources needs to have people that are trained as advisors to help to assist in making those decisions and then implementing the decisions once they're made. So I don't know why the superintendent and the manager couldn't share those types of resources. But I mean, there's a limit, there's a balance. A community with the resources that Cohasset has, there's going to be a limit to anything. There's a budget. So I would want someone that's worked in the public sector, hopefully in the private sector, and maybe someone who is not necessarily what you'd consider a human resources expert, but someone that's actually worked in the field and has some level of experience, because we're not going to be able to afford somebody that's managed a Fortune 500 company in human resources. But, I would look to get someone who has had some experience working in human resources and comes with good credentials and good references, and maybe someone who's an assistant in a larger organization that wants to move up to running an operation, creating an operation. And I would work with that person and hopefully the superintendent of schools, just an idea, to try to develop some kind of an infrastructure in human resources and benefit management.
Well, we've talked about combining both. We don't have thousands of employees.
Right.
But we also, the human resource would be involved also with union negotiations and stuff.
Yes.
And we would need a person, and as I say, it's from the ground up we're doing. And we do have this huge report that could be read.
I mean, all of our money is spent on salaries and benefits, really. Most of it, if not all of it, most of it certainly on the school side and on the town side. So it's worth it to me. To me, it would be worth it to invest some money in helping to manage efficiencies within human resources. And even though you don't have thousands of employees, you still, that's where you need to find your efficiencies, is helping. And as I say, restructuring, reorganizing, that's got to be the business of any municipal government to maintain fiscal stability. So you need a good person to advise the manager, the superintendent, and other decision makers on human resource type decisions as you go forward. And I think it's time that Cohasset has that. I would look forward to having that opportunity, to building that office. That would be something that I could get involved with right away. I could read that report as you indicate. And since it's not something that's already in place, one of my priorities would be learning what works well here. So, I wouldn't want to become a change agent immediately. I wouldn't want to see myself as coming in and saying, okay, I'm going to show you how to do it. No, I want to learn how you do it here and what you've done well, and see if I can add value to that from my experience and my perspective. Human resources, that's something that I could help start from the ground up.
Okay, thank you.
Steve?
Steve, we briefly discussed budgeting in your initial interview. And our community has a long history of small case Y Yankee thrift. With that perspective, would you describe for the board your budgeting philosophy and your budget management philosophy as well?
Well, I tend to think that I come from a very conservative background. I've said it in my papers, my letter, and probably my resume, that westerly, what I was brought up in, essentially, municipal government was extremely fiscally conservative, and that is very limited increases, if any, depending on the circumstances, on an annual basis, and it was always expected that we operate under budget. So in my community, it was unimaginable to exceed your budget in any particular department or on an annual basis. That's the sort of the tradition I come from. I developed the habit of working very closely with the finance director and relying heavily on the finance director to understand where we were every day. So we set up a comparison of something new. It seems simple, but a comparison of where we were in the fiscal year, the prior fiscal year. So we knew, even if we were, say, 3 quarters into the year and we'd only spent 3 quarters of our budget, it might look on the surface as though, if we were 1 quarter into the year and we only spent 1 quarter of the budget, it might look on the surface as though that's appropriate. But if you look back the prior year or 2 years back, that may be way off kilter. And so you need to understand where you are on a monthly basis and then a quarterly basis. Managing the budget, I think I talked about it a little bit last time, how we established what we called a Plan B working group that was really an advisory body to the manager, who had to manage the budget on a day in and day out basis. And we met quarterly with the superintendent of schools, the manager, the president of the town council, the chairman of the school committee, and the chairman of the finance board, and the finance director. And we reviewed the performance, the revenue performance and the expenditure performance for the quarter and the prior quarterly performance, which I guess that's done in the private sector all the time. You look at your prior first quarter, second quarter versus the current first quarter, second quarter. That's very important. And if you understand where you are on a monthly and quarterly basis, you can make the adjustments. Sometimes they're drastic. Hopefully they don't have to be that drastic. You can just be deferring an expenditure or a purchase. But sometimes it requires downsizing, because if you're not meeting your revenue targets, you have to change your spending in order to come in the black. So I guess my philosophy would be, you always underspend. Number one, you always have a positive performance in your budget, meaning you underspend, and you always look for opportunities to downsize and reorganize, so that there's always going to be priorities and pressures every year. Usually they're in education because of mandates, and there's always going to be priorities and pressures on spending that you need to meet in saving or reorganizing in some other area. you can't be too
Fix.
territorial. You know, you can't be, we're not giving up this, or we're not giving up that, or I'm not doing this, because in the end, it's all the taxpayers' money. So, you just have to work with your boards and ultimately the board of, selectmen and the town meeting to establish a budget that everyone can live with.
Thank you.
Follow?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In some of the interviews, we've heard about performance-based budget, and I'm not sure if that's your Plan B or this managing that you're talking about, so I'd like to give me a little bit on that. And also, I'm sure you've heard in the finance meeting that we're into the planning process for the FY15 budget.
Yes.
Could you tell me how you, or could tell us how you would view your role in the budget coming up? I mean, it will be your budget if you were selected.
Right, and we talked about that a little bit this afternoon, that the budget might be fairly complete by the time you make a decision on the new manager, but I would want to have a role in that. I would, if it's not too late to become involved, I would definitely want to learn as much as I could in a 2 to 3 week period and see if I could add some, make a contribution to the final product, whatever that might be. But it's gonna be a budget that if I become a manager, I'm gonna have to live with it for a year and a half. Really, before that budget year is complete, it's another year and a half from now. So I would, if I could, I would wanna get involved in that, even if it meant delaying the budget a few weeks. I think that would be, it would be important for me, and I think it would be useful for the community, because you're making all of this effort to bring in someone who has some experience and some knowledge in municipal management, and I think having them have a role or some input in the final product makes sense. Performance-based budgeting, I don't really use that term. I mean, I'm familiar with zero-based budgeting, which is, instead of just talking about, and this is something that's hard in the public sector too, but needs to be worked on in every community, including Cohasset, is instead of just saying, okay, you have 10 things that you do, and how much more is that going to cost this year? Go back to zero and say, what do we need to accomplish the mission? And start from zero. And I think that's a painful and difficult process, but in the long run, it's the most efficient process for any organization.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and your regular
Oh,
question?
my regular
Yeah.
question. No, that's Steve, I'm sorry, I lost my place. Okay, right in front of me.
Okay.
The Town Manager Act invests significant authority in the position of the town manager. How would you describe your working relationship with the Board of Selectmen?
Critical.
Good answer.
I can't think of a more important relationship than with your direct supervisor. So, I would want the Board of Selectmen to have confidence in the work that I'm doing. I would work hard to earn your trust and your confidence, so that you can rely upon me to manage the levers of the administration on a day-to-day basis, because I think if you have a highly functioning administration, ultimately, the town is much freer to make good choices, long-term choices. And so that would be my role. I think having a relationship, having regular communication, I would probably, in the past, I would meet or talk almost daily with the chairman, and I would want to meet probably at least once a month with each board member individually to ensure that I'm meeting your individual expectations of my performance. And I would expect you to hold me to a high standard of communicating the important milestones in the administrations, what's happening on a daily or weekly basis. You need to be informed. You need to be informed before anyone else is informed, so that you can be in a position to communicate with your constituents. You know, your constituents expect you to know what's going on and to understand what the issues are, and you've got to rely on the manager and his staff to give you that information.
So, so basically what you'd be saying, well, while the town manager has the authority, you would be looking to work with the board as a team in a collegial cooperative way?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I guess that's what I'm saying is I need to understand well what the goals of the board are and to be able to implement those. So, in terms of, if you mean, do I want to work collegially to make management decisions?
No.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't consult with you on what I consider to be management day-to-day decisions, but you need to be informed of what I'm doing so you can understand it, and I want to make sure my job would be making sure the administration is functioning at a high level so that we can be responsive to the direction that the board is going to take the town in.
Thank you.
Okay, what do you view as the top 3 issues facing Cohasset?
Tax base, probably a big issue. You know, future growth in revenues where there's a limit. There's clearly a limit to the development, to any development in town that could lead to greater revenues. So revenues is really where it's at, I think, for a community like Cohasset, and you know, how do you meet your long-term infrastructure costs? Because you've got a lot of debt as a result of your water system and some other infrastructure work that you've done recently, which is very important. But how are you going to be able to do the things that you want to do in the next 5 to 10 years in both the schools and in town facilities? You know, you got the senior center project. You've got you want to do some work at the town hall. There's going to be needs at the schools. There's going to be a lot of other projects that I'm not really familiar with, but being able to meet those with a relatively limited revenue growth, that's a big challenge for the community. I don't have an answer for that, but I would say that being ready for changes in technology that allow you to deliver services in a more efficient manner would be, I think, a key role for the next manager. And so the way we deliver services now is going to look completely different in 10 years from now. And I don't know what that is, and I don't think anybody does, but the municipality needs to be positioned to be able to adapt to those changes so that we can take advantage of them and we don't get left behind, and so that we're not overstaffed in one particular area and understaffed in others.
Thank you. Diane?
Should you be named town manager, what would your first week's schedule look like? And then your first 60 days and 90 days?
Well, my first week, I would want to meet the staff, and I would make an effort to go to all of the sites that the town, where we have town staff, and meet with the staff individually. Each staff member, at least introduce myself and say hi, try to get to know people. I would be meeting with my department heads on a regular basis, certainly in the first week. I would want to let people get to know me and try to get to know them. The first 60 days, I think it was the first 60 days, I would want to learn, besides the budget, which that would take up a lot of my time right in the beginning because of where we are in the cycle. I would want to get to know the operation better in working through the department heads and through the board of selectmen, as well as the commissions. I would want to get to know the commission chairs. I would want to meet with them individually, and then have an opportunity to meet with their boards. I'm not sure how that would take place, but I would certainly want the chairman to come to the town hall and meet with me so I could introduce myself to them and get to know them and what's going on in their, within their spheres. And I don't know if I would attend commission meetings, but I might do that on key commission meetings and introduce myself. I would want to get to meet community groups at community events. I would look for any opportunity, Chamber of Commerce, Rotary Club, church groups, I would look for any opportunity in the first 60 to 90 days to speak to groups and introduce myself so people can feel comfortable. Once people get to know you, then they feel comfortable sort of talking to you about important issues and relying on you to play a role in resolving issues. So it would be a learning period. It would be getting to know the staff, getting to know the board well, and the Board of Selectmen well, and the other decision makers in town, and then getting to be known in the community.
Good, thank you.
Martha?
So, what success have you had with federal and local grants for projects? And name some, and also, especially with Sandy and another storm. And do you have a special disaster plan that you built up? You know, I remember in the past, it was the hurricane 1938, and it devastated Rhode Island, and
Yes.
you're located in that kind of area, so I.
Yes, and
Westerly was
And-
wiped clean.
And the grants would be for other things, not just disasters.
yes, and
The whole field.
and I do have unintentionally, I have a great deal of experience in natural disasters and emergency management, because I managed when I was manager in Westerly, I managed 3 major disasters and a couple of minor disasters. One was the flood of 2010. It was a substantial, actually a 200-plus year flood event that came down the river that no one living had seen. That kind of devastating from flooding of the river, the Wood and Pawcatuck River,
Yeah.
overflowed its banks, and almost a quarter of the town in the north end, the historic north end, was underwater. And then Hurricane Irene, which we thought was bad until Hurricane Sandy came, and there was $15 to $20 million of public and private damage in Westerly alone. We were the hardest hit community in Westerly, so I've got a great deal of experience there. On-the-job training, I have taken some certified classes in incident management and emergency management. I think I learned a lot about the right things to do, the wrong things to do, how to set up an infrastructure, how to work with planning for those events. I think we had a great deal of success with grants. We actually got a critical road, an artery through the north end, which was also supported a lot of our industrial and commercial in the historic part of town, called Canal Street and White Rock Road. As a result of the flood of 2010, we were able to put together grants totaling $3.5 million for a road infrastructure project that we were going to pay for with a bond that had just been approved by the voters, a $6.5 million bond for road improvement. So out of the $6.5 million, $3.5 was going to be for this project, which was the number one priority for the town. But because we successfully went after federal grant funds through the EDA and CDBG, you know, we had $3.5 million more we could spend on other road improvement projects in the town, which was a big success for us. And one of the first things I did was the consultant that I hired that worked with me and wrote the grants, I hired her to work for the town. And I reorganized what I call our development office, which is planning, zoning, and building, into one office under her management. And she was also responsible for grants administration for the community, because when you work in any community, including Cohasset, you've got people all over the town working on little pet grants. And some are little, some are big. There are a lot of details that have to be managed, not only in winning the grants, but then managing the grants. And we didn't have anyone in our community coordinating that. So there were a lot of things falling through the cracks. And since she came on board, there in Westerly, we have achieved substantial savings and wins for the town, including there was probably another $3 to $4 million in federal emergency money that came in for the Sandy crisis, and we were sitting on another $4 to $5 million in additional grants. And I know Cohasset's been very successful with its harbor dredging, and we were working on a dredging project in Westerly too after Sandy. So, yeah, I've dealt with a lot of federal and state regulatory processes for grant writing, for winning grants, and for managing grants. So, yeah, I would bring that to Cohasset.
But did you have grants in other fields that have been disasters?
Yes, I mean, we worked on economic development grants to renovate an historic theater that was sort of the linchpin of our downtown revitalization in Westerly, and we had some success, but we didn't get as far as I wanted to before I left that job. We had some security grants through Homeland Security that we were successful in offsetting some security costs at the new high school of about $500,000 that we achieved through our police department. So, yeah, we've been involved with a lot of clean water money because we had a water department just like Cohasset had a lot of clean water money, acquisition of wellhead protection property through the state and federal government. So, those are some areas that I worked in with grants. I never did the work myself, but I directed the work and I oversaw the work, and I think we did so successfully.
You had employees that.
Yes.
People looked at it.
That's right. Or consultants.
Okay, thank you.
Can I
Go
just-
ahead,
It's somewhat of a follow-up. What was the budget of Westerly?
So our general government budget was, in round numbers, $30 million, and our school budget was $50 million. And then we had our enterprise funds, water and sewer, about another $10 million.
So 30 plus 50 plus 10?
Yes.
Okay. Trying to compare it.
Yes.
Much better.
A large organization comparatively, but
Yes.
Still a small town.
Yep.
You know, it's a New England town.
How many
small town,
residents?
23,000.
Okay.
Didn't see a lot of growth between 2000 and 2010 census.
Medium sized. Build up?
Yes. Mostly developed. A lot, maybe 20% is preserved in open
Is it?
space.
Or parks and stuff?
Yes. Yeah, and we were working to achieve more. There was a couple of farms that we were working with Land Trust to acquire. In fact, I was just working on a project to acquire 400 acres, partnering with the DEM, Department of Environmental Management, on some open space money.
Steve?
Steve, town meeting form of government is the most direct form of democracy. How do you envision operating within that environment, this environment? What actions will take first priority for you? And then, in addition, how do you envision leveraging committee expertise, which is a component part of the town management form of government? I'm sorry, town meeting form of government.
I think it's important. It's much like any good public policy decision-making. You have to build consensus. So it's a lot of hard work, and there's a lot of dialogue, there are a lot of meetings, but if the manager and the Board of Selectmen go into a town meeting as a unified group, and if there are commission heads that support policies, spending policies, budget policies in advance, and they're communicated well to the community, and the priorities are communicated well, and the need for the priorities and the foundation for the decisions, you'll have success maybe 60 or 70% of the time. You're never going to have 100% success with a town meeting, but I think usually if the public has confidence in the work that you're doing and the decisions that you're making, and it's the cost growth or cost is limited, they will support it. It's just
Thanks.
more work. I think it's probably extra work to try to persuade the town meeting that they should support it as well, beyond what I've been working with in the form of government that I was in.
Okay, and again, I'll bring you back to the final element of that question. How do you envision, no, that's all right, how do you envision leveraging the committee expertise in this environment?
Well, I think that they would be part of the consensus building. I'm not saying I would drive the consensus. That would probably come from you, from the Board of Selectmen, but I would support that consensus building and their expertise in developing the policies or the budgets or the spending priorities that are going to go before the town meeting. You know, their expertise and their experience and their connection with the community and the time and experience they've built in working in whatever area they've chosen to work in the town government, that's critical. They have to support it, and they have to be part of the process of developing the policy. And I think that's important.
Okay.
And again, it's the same thing. You're not gonna get all of them to support any particular initiative, but if you can get most of them to support it, or when I say support, I mean, you know, they need to have input on the development of the policy. And if they do have input, most of the time, they will support the ultimate proposal or program.
Thanks.
Karen?
Our local form of government is a little bit different from the one that you were in before. What do you see as similar and different in Cohasset from the community you came from?
I think there are a lot of similarities. I think Westerly was a fiscally strong community. We had a fairly stable tax base and stable sort of collection, the ability of people to pay the tax bill, and pretty heavily dependent on residential property. We were a shoreline community with those challenges in the summer, change in the summer population, and people coming into the community. You know, it's different because we didn't have a town meeting. I mean, I think that's a big factor. You know, it was a representative democracy where the council ultimately would make the decision on laws and the budget. It was a bigger operation, so for me personally, you know, I might have had more resources to draw upon in making my decisions as manager and implementing those decisions. You know, I've come from small organizations. I worked in law firms, worked in companies, so I understand. You know, that I guess that most people here have a hands-on role. You know, they're on the front lines, I guess, if you will. They're doing the job every day. They're not necessarily all in sort of think tanks or strategy offices. I think that would be a challenge that I would have to adapt to. But I feel comfortable. I grew up in a small community, and I said I've worked in small organizations. I mean, I managed a small office of legal professionals for the town before I became town manager. I didn't have a deep bench. I didn't have a lot of support staff. So, I guess those are some of the things. You know, probably more limited commercial base here than in Westerly. We had a bigger commercial, bigger economy where more people were employed in town. You know, we had a hospital. We had a major bank. We had that was headquartered there. We had a lot of retail businesses. We had some manufacturing. A very large tourist economy in Westerly. So we also had revenues that were based. We had quite a bit of revenue from a meal and hotel tax, which I know Cohasset doesn't have that to rely on. Those are some of the differences.
Yeah. No, and some of the
some-
similarities too.
Some of the similarities, right?
Did you find, I'm just curious, if, what the citizen involvement was it a very active, involved citizenry, or?
I think it's
Because
less so. I think it's less so in a bigger community. I think people are a little more detached. I mean, we had some strong groups. We had a finance board, and we had zoning board and planning board that were always very active and engaged, but they weren't really engaged in the direction of the town.
Mhm.
They were more dealing with individual development decisions. on particular properties. You know, so, it was really, I would say it was more limited in terms of, people, the average people becoming involved in the government, because it was a bigger government, so it was really the council and the school committee and, their staff that made most of the decisions. And if there was something particularly controversial, the public would come out and make their, displeasure or feelings known on an issue through citizens' comments. And there was always people that were, you know, contacting their elected representatives. There was never a problem with that. But we didn't have a lot of commissions, you know, that ran different parts of the operation or that oversaw different parts of the operation. We didn't have that. So that's a difference, and I think it's probably reflects the size of the community. That's, I don't know, it's closer knit, Cohasset, but it's much closer to you. It's more of your community organization, the town, than it is a large enterprise. You know, so you feel more vested in what happens here, I think, and that's a good thing. It can be a good thing, although it's very challenging for people to get through decisions through that process and to actually see progress through that process. But it's, in the end, it's a good thing because it's, everyone's more involved in the decisions that ultimately affect them and their families.
Thank you.
I just have a little bit of follow-up about kind of government structure. I did a little research, and Massachusetts has very limited county government. I see Rhode Island is even more limited. It
Right.
hardly exists except for very few things. But can you speak to your experience kind of legislatively dealing with both the Rhode Island legislature and federal or Congress or anything like that?
Sure, I think you need to be engaged at any level or at any size community. You need to be engaged if you're a manager or an administrator or a mayor or some other chief executive form. You need to understand the decisions that are being made at the state level. I think it's critical. I mean, we learned it in Rhode Island the hard way in the last 5 or 6 years about the impact of sudden changes in the state budget that can really impact local municipalities, and I know Massachusetts is no different. And so I really believe you can have a voice. I got to know people, I mean, Rhode Island's very small, but I got to know people at the state level, and I considered it an important part of my job to be out of my office and meeting with state decision makers. So I understood what the issues were, and I could convey to them what the importance of those decisions were for my community. And I think that's important for the manager of Cohasset, whoever the elected representatives are in the state legislature, but also in the federal government. You need to know your elected representatives. When there's a crisis, you need to be able to talk to people on their staff. You need to know them as well, so that and I found it just being earnest, that you care about your community, that you understand the problems facing your community, and that you just want an ear. You want someone to be able to listen and take into consideration. That's important because Board of Selectmen members, this is a part-time job for you. You have to work. A lot of you have to work full-time jobs, and you have family lives and everything else. So my job as manager is, I think, to keep, help maintain that relationship. That's a part of the job. I think that's critical, and I developed a very good relationship. I was asked to serve on the, as I said before, I was on the board of directors of the League of Cities and Towns, and I also was elected by my peers to serve as the president of the City and Town Managers Association, and that gave me a vehicle to be able to make a phone call, and people knew who I was, and I think that, any of that helps your community, because people know who you are, they know you're serious, you're a professional, and you don't call them except when it's really important and you really need their help on an issue. And there's no reason why municipalities like Cohasset can't be part of the solution on the state level, working through the league and other organizations. Those are important efforts. Again, more time, more effort, but they're important. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Again, following on with the form of government, so on, our community maintains substantial local services, public safety and schools among them. Can you do some comparison and contrasting for us with regard to your work with public safety in the past in Westerly, and as well, do you have examples of cooperative work that you possibly did with the school district?
Yes, I do. I mean, I don't think I did enough in terms of regionalizing public safety efforts. We did do some work in regionalizing emergency management, again, my philosophy of government is you've got to look for opportunities to save and to eliminate duplication of services, and communities have got to, not just within a community, but communities and regions have to work together to do that. And we did it in Westerly with the Washington County Regional Planning Council, which we got started before I became manager, but it was started by a grant from the Rhode Island Foundation as a sort of a regional think tank planning group, but ultimately led to some efforts where we could combine our efforts and maximize some of our achievements. One of them was we got some energy efficiency money through the Recovery Act that was managed by this regional planning council that was overseen by a member of the council from each community that was part of it. We didn't really give up any control over what we were doing, but there were things that we weren't doing that were more efficiently done by this regional organization. I think that you mentioned about the county government. There's no county government, and I think I do believe in regionalizing efforts, but I don't believe larger government structures can do things more efficiently. So, for instance, in Westerly, we had very small volunteer fire districts, and there was always talk about, well, can we combine those? Should the municipality take those over? I was always against that, because I always think, why does a larger government structure coming in, how are they going to do it more efficiently? That's like the state taking over the role of the municipality. I mean, to me, it defies logic. But there needs to be opportunities to partner, and we started at home. When I became manager, I set a goal of achieving an agreement with the school department within 6 months, actually 90 days of becoming manager, achieving an agreement with the school department to consolidate support services, duplicated services between the school department and the town. And we did that. We did that in the areas of IT. We did that in the areas of ground maintenance. We did that in the area of recreation, and also, I can't think of, there were 5 things now, I can't think of them off the top of my head, but that was the first phase, and then in the second year as manager, I achieved what was really a groundbreaking agreement with the school department to share one finance director that oversaw the finance offices, the two independent finance offices of the school and the town, reporting directly to the superintendent and the manager. And I'm not proposing that for Cohasset, but that's just an example of where, if you plan for strategic changes, you can achieve savings. We achieved probably $300,000 to $400,000 annual operational savings between those 2 phases of consolidation, just within our own community. And so there'll be opportunities in Cohasset for that down the road, and I'll be looking for those and trying to work with groups within the town to achieve those.
Thanks.
Any other follow-up? Any questions for us?
What do you think are the major issues facing Cohasset that I should be aware of?
Can't remember what I said last night. Erin, do you have what I said last night?
I think OPEB is a big one, obviously, and,
Yes.
And the limited opportunity for growth in some commercial. I mean, and sometimes we're a little bit envious of Norwell, for instance, that has a Route 53 that seems to have a good concentration of commercial growth right on that spine, and then a very pastoral, residential town itself. But they're able to, or Hingham with that nice shopping mall they have, they're getting a nice tax revenue out of that. So we have limited opportunities, and it's always a challenge for us because of the high residential percentage of property. We're fortunate on the, we are on the coastline, but compared to our neighbors, we're fortunate that we have a lot of high ledge, so we seem to be, for the most part, above beach damage, but we still have some lower areas down by the harbor and, along the coast and pockets that are susceptible to storm damage, so.
I think you addressed earlier what I, just to piggyback on what Fred said, we have limited growth opportunities, and we have a lot to accomplish. We have a lot of facility needs, and certainly the priorities of education and public safety and other social services in town are constantly putting pressure on the budget. And like you said, we have to find efficiencies and find new ways of addressing things and accomplishing these goals, and without taking on too much long-term debt. And we've made a lot of progress in straightening out the financial house, as well as starting to really look to the future, 5 years, 10 years, because you can't make it up as you go along. And so, it's the budget challenge and being able to deliver the services that people expect. And on the, just on the coastline, I always say it's a blessing and a curse. We have a higher responsibility, I think, to take care of our natural environment. And that's why most people live here, because it's beautiful. The ocean's beautiful, the inner harbor's beautiful, the main commercial harbor's beautiful, and
It's not the easy commute.
and the boat into Boston is a good thing. But that places a lot of responsibility on the town and the town to make sure that we steward those natural resources as well as our financial resources.
Well, I'd like to think that I've got, as I said before, enough experience that I can help make a difference here in those future challenges, addressing the need to find a way to continue to deliver the services effectively with a very limited growth in the tax base, and be able to somehow get under control those long-term costs that are there no matter what, like OPEB. I think I've got enough experience, good experience, that I can bring here without sort of being so set in the way that I've done business in the past that I can't adapt and think with a new perspective on things that can help the community. I think I've got the right temperament for the job of dealing with so many, I think, diverse groups of interested parties and decision makers. And I think I have a good temperament for dealing with the people that work for the town, so that they feel supported and understood and valued in the role that they play for the residents and the taxpayers. I think as I said, having had the experience as a chief executive before in another community, I think has value to Cohasset, because I bring that to the table. I bring that experience to the table, and I feel comfortable. I'm a New Englander. I feel comfortable with the perspectives and the challenges and the everything that New England has to offer. And so I think those are the things I bring to the table. I'm very interested in the town. I've had a great couple of days here, and I look forward to the opportunity to work with everybody.
Thank you.
I just,
Sure.
if I could, one of the things I'm sure you've read is that, we have made a lot of progress in putting our house right financially and looking towards the future, and that good work definitely needs to be continued. But the other aspect that is very important to me, and the reason I ran again, was we need, one of the other candidates phrased it this way, that we need to build a consensus to open a new chapter. And we need to put the past behind us and find a way to work together for the success of Cohasset. I think all the other things are important, we must do them, but I think the inability to, for want of a better description, to be able to play nice in the sandbox all the time holds us back. And that needs to be overcome in order for the community as a whole, certainly our town government, to move forward successfully.
Well, that's a constant challenge, I think, in any community. And from what I've seen here, I think you have made progress towards that. I think you've made good progress towards that. And getting this decision behind you, it's a leap of faith, to make a decision on at this level. You're never going to be able to know everything you want to know about a person until you work with them on a daily basis for a period of time. I think a good manager can definitely contribute to that. I don't think a manager can carry that on his shoulders. 100% consensus within a community or within a body of government, but
That's
I
not gonna
do
happen.
think, I do think a manager can contribute a lot to that, and I think Pete said it when we were in our meeting, that his sense of it, and I think I get that sense that you're sort of on the cusp of your next, the next level for the community. That seems kind of esoteric, but
No, it's true.
I think you could be there. For me, it certainly feels that way because I would be new here as the manager. So yes, I would expect that I could and would play an important role in that, getting to that next level.
Thank you, I didn't mean to put it all on the town manager's
No, I know you
shoulders.
didn't. I know you didn't.
Don't want you to
I
think
didn't
I
take
have
it that way.
unrealistic expectations.
Anything else for anybody?
Well, I just, one of the needs that we didn't address is our roads. We're in terrible shape, because we've had to worry about the finances and everything else, plus the senior center. But the roads, we do have chapter 90 money from the state, and that grant money can help, and we do get pretty good funding, but we have to wait every year. That'd be something that I'm interested in, but I agree with Karen that we're on the cusp of a new era. Well, every time, we change government, town managers and different things, and we are in a new stretch, so I look forward to that. It's nothing wrong with the past, but it's just something different, and
Yes,
and looking forward to the future, I think, is very good.
and good roads are important. I mean,
Yeah.
that takes good management to actually get in today's complex society, doing business in the public sector and public purchasing laws and everything that goes along with it. It's it takes focused, determined management to actually get the money out the door to get the roads paved. And I've had a lot of success in that, and that's important. That's an important thing to the taxpayers. I mean, they pay so much money in taxes, and they want to see progress on infrastructure, and so that would be an important priority for me as a manager.
Okay, thank you.
And there's really not a lot I might add to the comments of my colleagues. However, I will try. There's no manager that's coming in, I think, with a magic wand. On the other hand, a manager coming in with some foresight and skill to see where we're lacking, and there are still plenty of places where we're lacking, can help to build a structure for the governance of the town and the administration of the town, which frankly can help us to successfully administer ourselves. And that may sound a little bizarre, but think about it. We have no HR function. None. We've had no HR function for years. And this on its own is an enormous cost risk to us. And as a result, it could blow up all of our best laid plans. Finance. We're stable. I say that as someone who works in the world of finance. We're slowly improving. 2 years doesn't make a trend. But you know what? It's a pretty good foundation block. You can start from there, and we can continue forward. Communication. We haven't done a great job over the years of establishing a two-way communication with the citizens. I say we, meaning the board, but just as importantly, town hall. To me, you could look at that as a real stumbling block, or you could look at it as a tremendous opportunity. These are just some of the areas that I look at and recognize that a manager, a professional, coming in can have an enormous and positive impact, not just for the moment and not just for the manager's tenure, but for the long haul. So,
That's it.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
thanks, Steve.
Oh, I know.
Thanks for making the trip.
Yeah, oh, you will.
Thank you. It's a great day.
Nice.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Fred, we get 3 minutes, or is it
Yeah, we're
7:05
gonna take a
start?
real quick 3-minute break.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
want to fill up.
Yep. 6, and we have, the next item on the agenda is a red line in hearing on a noise complaint on September 28th regarding the entertainment license. So I know there's been, over the last month, some other correspondence around this, but tonight I just want to stay with this one issue around the 28th, so, of September. And I think maybe the place to start would be, we did get a report from the police department, so maybe we should hear what they have to say, and then council can respond. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I haven't seen the report, but,
Oh, you haven't?
no.
Oh.
Okay, let me,
It was not provided to you?
No. If it's a recent report.
well, I'll give you my copy to peruse.
No, I mean, I want you to be able to function, but,
I think
Well,
we have multiple copies of
You
everything,
need
to
to
be
have.
honest with you.
No, it's, we're talking about the,
And I'll operate without it.
yeah,
This big thick
yeah,
thing?
the 30th November.
Tracy says she's a copy of it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Thank you. It's her
All right,
copy.
let me give you that, because I have notes in there, Charlie. Let me switch.
Just need it back.
Okay, so we had a complaint from a citizen, Butter.
Correct.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Pat Kenny from the Cohasset Police Department. I'm speaking in behalf of the police department tonight. Detective Lieutenant Lennon is out of state on vacation, and Acting Chief Quigley is in Falmouth, Massachusetts at a training relative to police management. And what they wanted me to do is just officially say that we have firsthand knowledge of the complaint and it was investigated. The investigation report by Detective Lieutenant Lennon, I believe, is in excess of 100 pages. And obviously, I'm not gonna read the whole thing into the record. And the chief had asked to make sure that I knew that we were presenting this as a fair and accurate representation of Lieutenant Detective Lennon's investigation. I've read part of the report, but I was not privy to the entire investigation, so I would be very limited on what questions I could answer as far as the factual investigation.
Okay. Well, I'm a little bit concerned that the Red Line in Council is just getting this report now. So it's difficult for them to get up to speed in a couple of minutes on this. What is the board's pleasure at this point?
Well, I think it's unfair to, red line in to discuss something that they have no idea what the report read. And I'm very surprised that you didn't get a copy of it, since you knew there was going to be a hearing.
I was in the selectman's office yesterday morning, well after the date of this report. I had heard that the cops had sent a video to the selectmen, and I had heard that they had filed other papers on, like, Travelocity, or one of those websites, comment sites. So I came in to pick up those. This is part of the record, but I was never informed there was any other documents saying that. I was here yesterday to pick up the file.
To clarify, I believe this was delivered to us yesterday evening. So it's not like
Yeah.
it's been long existent.
Yeah, I haven't even read it.
However, I agree that I would think that as a matter of a hearing, evidence that the town would be submitting would be disclosed to all.
Right.
It may make some sense to
Well.
extend this.
Yeah. I think I heard a motion to postpone this hearing until the beginning of the year.
I'll second that. Well, I don't know if it was the beginning of the year.
Well,
No, I'm not making
Oh, you're not
making
well,
a specific date,
I'm
but
just saying,
extending the
I'm
hearing.
looking at our schedule for the rest of this month and then the holidays coming up. we could do something, December 23rd maybe, if the board wanted to meet, before. Well, I'm looking at, we're,
I would request a date after the first.
yeah, I think that
Mhm. I
makes the
agree.
most sense
Thank
with
you.
the holidays, yeah.
Yeah, that's my Christmas caroling party. Sorry, I got a gig that night.
I think right now we have a meeting scheduled, on the first, what's the first Tuesday?
Could I just make a comment?
Yes,
Sort of
yeah.
for the record, because referencing the 100 pages, I think a lot of it is, there is a police report that clearly they haven't seen, and I agree, they should see it. But a lot of this, a lot of the documents that are with it are things that have been circulating between and among for years. So
Oh, yeah.
just so you know, just so that people aren't,
I just looked through, I can see the acoustical information. Obviously,
You
that's
presented
generated
that.
by us, but I'm looking at a 13-page police report, which would have been nice to read.
yes, absolutely, I agree.
No, we understand, Mr. Humphries, and I think as a matter of fair play, assuming that this is this is a hearing with regard to licensure status, the operator needs to see what's been collected up to this point.
So could I just ask one kind of technical
Sure.
question, which is, I believe that we have to approve permits before December 17th for the ABCC. So how would
Well-
postponing,
Was
Jen's, oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
Go
entertainment
ahead.
is not ABCC.
that's true.
Right, but-
Okay.
But as far as the ABCC goes, Jen says that we can approve them with the caveat that they might be amended. in her
Okay,
notes.
all right, I didn't
She
read
sent out
that.
today.
Okay,
I would see this as an ongoing matter. In other words, we could approve licenses, but still continue the hearing to a
Sure.
resolution.
okay.
So our first meeting is January 7th, and right now I'd anticipate we could extend it to that and at a minimum. So we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor of extending it until,
We haven't had a motion already.
well, it wasn't exactly word. Who would like to make a motion?
Steve, did you wanna make it, or do you want me to?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that, that due to the lack of notice or information being provided to the Red Lion Inn's attorney, that we extend the hearing to January 7th, 2014.
Would you post a time for that now?
Let's say 7:10.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 5-0. Is it 5-0?
Yes.
5-0.
So, I
It's-
apologize to everybody that's here for this, but,
Well, it was an expensive night for us. to get
Yes.
you ready to go.
yep.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you, Officer Kenny.
Thank
Okay,
You know,
we should say,
I'm not gonna open my mouth.
No,
okay.
I'll go there.
Why don't we, go to the, parking restrictions, we'll talk about that for a little bit, and then,
We never got any information on
no, and I've actually was preparing to have it on the next agenda also on the 17th, where we could actually have, hopefully the reports in and some recommendations from the police department on the parking, but it seemed to me there were two main, we have two separate issues. One was the parking, late parking, and finding some shorter term parking to avoid the commuter parking that's going in there and the carpooling. And the other was the request from the Carriage House Nursery School about the possibility of taking those 4 spaces on the road between Highland Ave and North Main Street, and allowing some parking along there during the day for their employees at the nursery school, so.
So, on this topic, the parking group met yesterday.
Oh,
I think it
okay.
was yesterday. And I did get an email from Jen, which I haven't read. I got it today, and I wondered whether she had sent it to everybody, but she hasn't. So it looks like they're gonna meet again. They have some recommendations, which I'll forward to everybody, and they're meeting again on Monday, December 16th at 8:30 a.m. So if we could get this, I think that the timing, the importance of the timing for us to discuss it is just so that if what they're gonna recommend is some temporary signage, to see
Yeah.
if there's some signage that can be placed, especially in the town parking lot. And they can't put signs up without our approval.
Right.
So if we could do that, that
Yeah.
would be great. And then they'll have met on Monday, and then maybe somebody from that group can come on the 17th
Okay,
and just say, we'd like to put a 4-hour parking sign at this end and that end, and do something out here on the common or whatever.
okay. All right, so they're gonna be meeting then. I'll have it on the agenda for the 17th.
Okay.
And that will take that, and there's perfect timing with fall coming in.
We could have used him a few minutes ago.
Oh, yeah. Forgot the crowd was coming.
Do you wanna update him?
Yeah.
No town manager. Is Michael coming this evening?
I get a message that he had a conflict. Paul, grab a seat. You're at perfect timing.
And we have no annual.
You're up.
Was postponed.
Yeah, well, there was a report that had not been conveyed to Red Lion's council, so we decided it was a thick report to give them time to familiarize themselves with it. We've postponed the hearing until the first meeting in January on the 7th at 7:10 PM, so we could use your assistance at that point if you don't have a conflict.
The report also covered more than what was noticed in the hearing. And the officer wasn't available to testify. So there were plenty good reasons to postpone.
Thank you.
What,
Yeah.
without putting anybody on the spot, but could we have avoided this? I feel really badly that everybody came down here. I mean, the Carps are here and looking for resolution, and Charlie, Gerd had to bring his attorney here, so I don't know if there was a time that which we could have known this and postponed it prior to getting here, or could we not have done that?
When I first got involved, basically yesterday,
Okay,
and complained a little bit about the 24-hour notice.
yeah,
The postponement will give me a chance to work with the police department to focus the issues to what's noticed in the hearing,
right.
and to make sure an officer's present. It's just one of those things.
Could the hearing have been postponed prior to us meeting, or
Yes.
are we the only ones that could have postponed it?
You're the only ones that could have postponed.
So we would have had to have come here anyway tonight to postpone it.
No, if your intention was to postpone it, you could have let them know that that was your intention.
Okay.
We did not know until, we didn't know that they didn't have the report.
I'm just trying to avoid this happening again,
Yeah,
that's
I
all.
I assume
It's-
that they
it's-
would be conveyed any and all materials related to the case.
But that has to be part of the notice, in fact.
Oh,
May I suggest that for the November 7th, I'm sorry, the January 7th
Turning back the time.
rescheduling, just a fond hope, that we contact Detective Lennon now, such to see that his scheduling is clear.
What-
Yes, I found out just a few hours ago that the detective wasn't here, and the licensee has a right to cross-examine the witnesses against them. This is like a trial,
Yeah.
so
The report would have to have been part of the notice also?
yes, they're entitled to, by Constitution, they're entitled to notice of the charges against them. It should have been appended to the notice.
I believe that may have been. However, the report that Fred's referring to is the consolidation of materials. So if this is the supporting documentation apparently gathered, we simply assume that that's something that the Red Lion should be in possession of.
But that also was organized in a way that presents a variety of different issues.
Right.
There's an issue in there, for example, about whether or not the licensee has properly updated its manager. They have to come before you and every time there's a change in manager. So there's all this stuff in there about who the manager is, which has nothing to do with what was noticed for the hearing. So that report is one that needs to be divided into a series of separate pieces. And the piece that deals with the issue before us, which is the noise complaint, all those pieces need to be in
Okay.
one document alone. And
Everything else is different.
Steve, I believe that Attorney Humphreys indicated that they had not received the police report. So,
No, what Paul was describing was the
Oh, no,
description of the charge, which has to be
No, no.
delivered.
yeah.
Okay. In any case, it sounds like the delaying this to the January meeting was the proper course of action. And like I said, just to make sure that our ducks are in a row, can we work through you, Tracy, to arrange coordination with Detective Lennon's schedule? Is there anybody else that we would need to have here from the town side, Paul?
Well, that depends on the nature of the defense that the Red Lion is preparing to put up. The investigating officer, there is a problem of hearsay where he will be reporting what people told him. And to the extent that we need the people who told him information, then those people need to be brought forward.
I suspect that they'll have plenty of interest in attending on their own, especially if it makes their complaint that much stronger. But from the town side, our employees that we would want to have present, is there anybody else that we would need?
Not town employees, no.
Okay.
But the witnesses, they would be from us, not from Charlie, and we shouldn't assume that people would come.
No. I think contacting them makes absolute sense, and letting them know what the change of schedule is, yes. I just wanted to make sure that we had arranged
But I think
work
also
schedules.
advising them that they may be, called upon to make a statement.
Well, they need to be. I mean, I would, if you allow me to present the case with the police department, one of the first witnesses will be the complaining party. And the complaining party has a videotape of the event that they were complaining of. To introduce that into evidence, to have them authenticate the video, and perhaps to play it for the board, those kinds of things. I would need those witnesses, as opposed to an officer who would say that somebody told them that they had done this and they had this. Better to have the actual witness.
Will you be able to divide this report properly at your firm?
Well, what
Or
I
do we
was
need to
planning to
work
do
with
after-
somebody here?
I only read this afternoon, was the first I saw it. And I was planning to find out, I'd asked the town manager to find a police officer who could authenticate this as a business record, and then I was gonna sit down with the police officer and go through it X out the parts and have him actually read into the record here at the hearing the portions that pertain to the subject matter, and ask you all to disregard the rest of the stuff that's in that packet. That should be presented to you separately with a request that perhaps another hearing be held for additional information that may have come to light. But the subject matter of this hearing was the noise complaint, essentially, and not the other pieces that are in there.
Okay, I think we can take the rest of this offline, and we go to the next item on the agenda, which was discussing and decisions regarding the town manager position, search and candidates, and which was, we had several issues on how we properly, as a board, go out and do our due diligence on the three candidates that we've chosen. And one of which was Steve's concern about the credit checks and not having access to that through the Collins Center. So,
It's actually the totality of the Collins Center, but I have used the credit checks as examples.
yeah,
And I understand that the Collins Center has asked applicants to sign a release, but under confidentiality, that information be held. At the same time, that puts us, as the elected body, at a disadvantage. If we're entrusting that a third party is enforcing standards that are like or consistent with our own, yet we don't have any review of what that information is.
I have sent a memo to Fred on this subject.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to find my copy of the
I think I
email.
forwarded that to everybody, didn't I? Yeah.
Yep.
It's in here somewhere.
I don't know what it is, but I'm being buried with paper also, so.
Yeah,
I feel for you, Paul.
I'm even trying to find it in the emails, and
Well,
I've got it here.
I packed it away here to have it. It's in here somewhere. It's just all the red line stuff.
What's the date?
The date is November 29.
It's from Fred.
It's under Fred's heading. Just scroll down. The fact that the town has already contracted with the Collins Center to perform these services should not bar the town from contracting with another to do the same service or to do these services on multiple reiterations.
Yeah, you can do it as many times as you want.
Yeah. Background.
From what I understand from Collins is that they, on the credit checks, they ran the credit checks and there was nothing that would be of concern.
The point in this, Paul, is,
Yeah,
the point in this was one of policy. I believe that I've got a duty to review that on my own rather than entrust a third party, especially when I don't understand or don't know the third party's standards.
but one of the points I try to make in here is that, we're not, recruiters, we're not headhunters. There are people who do this regularly and who have expertise in that. We're simple lawyers.
No, and I understand that. The question this boils down to is, if we go out and ask for this information, and part of our concern is, in doing so, should it become part of a public record, we're not so certain, I am not so certain, that that's a particularly good recruiting approach.
No, it's-
Okay? So the question is, if we ask for the information, can it be held confidentially by us? If we go out and seek it, can it be held confidentially by us, or is it automatically part of a public record?
It's, the answer is in part and in part.
Which part isn't?
You'd have to redact from the document things that are considered personal and private.
Okay.
But if the report said general statements like do not extend credit to this individual, that would be a public record.
But the individual's name could be redacted.
No.
Ah.
The person's name,
Right.
the overall statement, but the specifics as to like how much do they owe on their mortgage and what their social security number is, and how many houses that they had, and they're in divorce, and they have child support obligations. I mean, there's just so many pieces to that, but you'd have to look at it and redact from it those things that would be private and personal to an individual.
Is that before it got to us, if it went that way, or as it's released as a public document?
If there was a request made to release it, you would have to redact it before you released it.
See,
Yeah.
you know, going forward, now we have 3 candidates, and I understand that there were 5 presented to us by the Collins Center, so they've probably done this for the 5 people. They've done educational credentials check, which I think is a simple, you know, they went to the schools they said they went to and got the degrees they went to. I think it's a little more complicated with a credit check. Corey is pretty standard, but the work's been done by the Collins Center and was paid for by the town. So I'm a little reluctant to go forward and hire somebody else to do the same work again. Could we ask the 3 finalist candidates to permit, you know, to sign a waiver that the results of the background checks could be shared with the board to avoid the second step of going forward and re-engaging the services of a professional to get these checks for us? And then, if that happens, if they say, sure, you know, absolutely, go ahead, which I would imagine they would, then what's the mechanics, to your question, of us getting that information redacted?
Again, I want to say that we're not headhunters, but I know from my own personal experience that in terms of, I've hired town managers
Mm-hmm.
in the past, in my
Selectman
capacity as an
role.
elected official. And if you ask people for, if you ask references, for example, for information on the record, they're gonna give you pretty much the standard answer. Somebody was employed at certain dates and they left at a certain time. That's basically all you get.
Mm-hmm.
If you are allowed to go off record with the person you're talking to, you often can get more of a feel.
Right.
So somebody like the Collins Institute, I don't know what they actually did, but were I the Collins Institute, I would be contacting references with assurance of confidentiality. You know, don't give me the standard canned answer that the guy was here for that period of time and so on. You know, what do you really think about him?
Mm-hmm.
As off the record stuff. And so it's not the right of the candidate to authorize the release of that. People disclosed information that they wouldn't have otherwise disclosed on the basis that it was confidential and will always be kept confidential. There are rights of other people involved here.
So in order to get the most candid information, people have been promised confidentiality that, no, neither Collins Center or us or
Yeah,
the candidates
talking to
themselves are in
Yeah.
a position to waive.
Yeah, I'm more talking, and I agree with the actual reference check, calling you worked with so-and-so between the years of such and such, tell me what you really think kind of thing, with confidentiality. I have no problem with that. I'm talking the specific reports, like a credit report, or a Corey check, or the
Well,
educational
check by
credit.
law, you can't say.
Okay, which is fine.
That's
It just happens, right? But what about a credit? I think probably Steve's biggest concern is the credit check, you know? We want to make sure this person, you know, isn't in bankruptcy, or, I don't know, you know?
Well, I think it's all
They
of-
did it, the Collins Center did a credit check, so
I
the
think it's
question
all of
is-
our concerns. The issue seems to be whether we trust the Collins Center or not. And it's the board's decision. I think we're gonna have to take a vote whether we want to go forward to request another credit check. But, it's not an individual member's decision, it's a board decision. So when, at the end of this, we're gonna come to a board's decision on whether we're gonna go forward with these requests or not.
Agreed, and my only issue is the credit check's already been done. So, I just wanna, I wanna know what the metrics of that was, and that's what we don't have from the
That'd-
Collins Center.
That'd be
You know,
very helpful to me, you know.
What does it mean it checked out? I think if we could just have them explain to us that, there were no smoking, I don't know, there's gotta be some metrics by which somebody passes the credit check. If it's a pass, pass-fail
yeah.
thing, I mean, I don't know.
Along those lines, that hits it right on the head for me. We are being asked, and I feel that personally I'm being asked, to accept a standard which has never been described or explained to me, a standard of acceptance.
Yeah.
And with respect to the credit check, I mean, the Corey check, I believe, is very straightforward. Either you have a criminal history or you do not. Okay? That's pretty straightforward. And I would have to assume, although I never did get a response from Mr. Kobayashi after asking twice, what standards were applied there. But I have to assume, and I will go on this, that a Corey check simply means that there is no criminal history. As well, I have to assume that an educational reference check very simply means that the degree claimed from the school identified is confirmed, okay? Within the credit history, the town manager's role includes as one of its biggest duties administering a budget. So yes, I do want to know the details of that. I do want to know if a candidate has been late a half a dozen times over the past 3 years on 3 revolving credit accounts. That is important information from my perspective. It may not be to the others on the board, or it may be. And I respect that eventually it becomes a board decision and not one that we can go freelancing. However, the standards by which a candidate was considered okay to pass along are still unknown to me, and as far as I know, unknown to the board. And I sure would like to know what they are.
Okay, because that, I believe, has not been asked of.
No, it has
Paul.
been.
What
Oh,
the
not of
standards
Paul,
were? No,
not of
what
Paul.
the standards were?
Yeah,
And we wanted to
I
know if
wrote
we could-
separately.
We could look at the credit reports, which was an issue because of confidentiality of the selection committee
Right.
being able to do certain things in quote-unquote executive session that don't become public record.
I'm happy to delineate in exhaustive detail for the Collins Center the types of answers that I'm looking for, but I think the more important question is the board interested in this?
Fred,
Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question. Was this, credit check done when, the previous town manager was hired, or the acting town manager was hired?
I don't think it much matters. The question is whether or not we're willing to go ahead and do it now.
Yes, it was a procedure. I mean,
Yes, exactly. It is a procedure. I mean, this is a procedure that frankly is done for a patrol officer on the police force. They go through psychological examination. We're just very simply asking questions.
The answer is that I believe it was done on the prior one, and it was done on this one. I don't recall if it was done on the acting. But this is different from doing it. It's being asked to be done again or to look at something that we are not privy to look at, so.
Right, it's been done, that's the
yeah,
good news.
And I'd like,
Done,
And
and I'm
they've-
told
and
there
they've
was nothing
passed.
unusual, or they wouldn't be in front of us.
Mr. Chairman, and I just want to clarify once
Yeah.
again. All I want to know at this point is, what does that mean specifically? That there is quote-unquote nothing unusual? Because if you're selling cars and trying to pack the lot, you know, nothing unusual is a credit score down in the 600s with a fairly checkered history. If you're looking to, looking for someone to run a $38 million budget, I'd argue that there's a different standard there. Okay? That's where I'm going with this. If the
Okay.
Collins Center will describe for us what was their standard, that it could go a long way to just simply resolving this.
So you are no longer asking for the specific information on the I'm just trying to understand. For the specific information, what you want are the parameters by which the decision was made.
The decision has already been made by a third party that these candidates have
No,
passed
I'm just
muster.
asking if-
No, hear me, this is relevant. And I'm willing to accept that in fact is the case if I understand what those standards were. As I I now recognize from Paul's information, were we to go out and get this information on our own as a board, it becomes a matter of public record. I believe that actually potentially hinders the candidacy. Why would you willingly expose yourself to a simple records request from the local newspaper? Hey, can I see that? Can I see your credit records? That's not necessarily smart. And that's, it's one of the holes we have by not having an HR function. Okay? An HR director would say, you know what, stay away from that one. It's nuclear. Because I've already looked at the background. No, you can't see it. Having said that, yes, let's hear what the standards were that were applied by our consultant.
So if they were to
Let's go
say,
forward.
Here is the credit rating, or whatever the specifics are, but with no specific information to any particular candidate.
Right,
You would be
right.
satisfied with
Yeah,
that.
as an example, no past credit events within the past 3 years, no prior bankruptcies whatsoever. No, you get that sort of information, and I'm happy to develop it, pass it around, to promote it,
But
propose it to you.
Wouldn't it be more efficient, at least as a first step, to just ask the Collins Center to put into writing what their criteria is?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And then if that is not sufficient, then we'll have to have another discussion about it, but, I have a level of confidence in the Collins Center because of their experience, their standing within the community that they work within, the respect that they are and their ability, they know a lot of people and they get a lot of information. I also think that, this is just for me speaking, that these candidates have worked at other towns in very similar positions, having very similar responsibilities, and that if there had been such a problem, one would think that it would have emerged somehow.
We would have thought that with the last hire of a permanent town manager too, right?
It was all over the internet, Steve.
Right, that's my point.
All anybody had to do was look.
No, I agree. That's my point. But here's the thing. I recognize that the crop of folks that we're talking with right now have gained the confidence of this board to the point where we've got 3 finalists. All right? Measure twice, cut once. This may seem to the rest of the board, this may seem like me being a stick in the mud over nothing. And I'm willing to take the slings and arrows on that, because I'd much rather be overly cautious and make a great hire than to just say, you know what, let's trust somebody else and let's get on with it. Listen, I know the Collins Center has done a fine job here, but remember, they told us no matter what, they were going to be hiring people, they were going to be luring people away from their existing jobs they were going to love to come here. That didn't turn out to be the case. They told us that, don't worry, you don't need town meeting experience, yet they told Foxborough, you can't live without it. All right? They ruled out a number of candidates because apparently they didn't meet our screening criteria, but interestingly enough, the ones they ruled out made the very same screening criteria in Carver. So all things considered, at the end of the conversation,
I don't want to get into
we are dealing with
a
Karen, I still have the floor. We're dealing with a consultant, and while I appreciate that the consultant has a level of capabilities, I don't think I'm out of line asking to find out what exactly were the screening criteria that consultant used.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
I'm not questioning your right to do that. I'm trying to clarify now exactly what it is that might satisfy that decision, because really, I don't want to waste any more time on this. And just as an observation, again, I do not want to get into a discussion or an argument or anything, but I do not think that all the facts that you presented might be accurate in all.
I do, and as a matter of fact, I'll stand by them. So from that perspective, yes, I ask that if you would gain the information from Mr. Kobayashi as to what standards they applied, specifically to the credit review.
Yep.
Such that that each candidate was deemed acceptable. Doesn't matter who the candidates were in my mind, as long as the criteria was evenly
I can
applied.
do that tomorrow,
Okay.
okay?
Yep.
And as soon as I get a response back, I'll forward to the board, okay? The next issue was, brought up by Diane, was kind of a search of civil litigation, what's out there in
Yeah,
the universe, yeah.
And that's trickier, I think. Is there a way for us to do that? And I think you said it's something that we could pay to have done, to make sure, these guys, and we'd have to set a standard, do we want to know 5 years, 10 years, whether there's been any civil litigation? Because that kind of information was brushed off with the last search, with the last hire, If there has been litigation against, or if they've filed civil litigation against.
While we're discussing the scope of this, let me just ask a question to kind of set boundaries around it. Are we interested in any and all civil litigation, like a fence line type of thing, or is it more around job-related with communities, or?
For me, it's job-related,
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
But unfortunately, the methodology
it's difficult.
that I proposed was a computer search, which was gonna be by name. So we will pick up the divorces, we will
Right.
pick up the child custody fights, we will pick up the
Right.
Anybody who serves in public service is gonna get sued a lot. And if we did a search on any member of this board, your name is gonna pop up in a few suits. So the fact that,
Therein lies the problem.
the fact that someone is sued in the public sector is not a unusual.
And again, that was that's what calmed me down the last time around. These things happen all the time. It's the nature of the business. They get fired, they file a lawsuit against their town. And it was, I in a lot of, in the past, I knew about that because it was in the public domain. There was a newspaper article that said so-and-so files a lawsuit against former employer, such and such community. And as far as I can tell, that hasn't been the case with these folks. But I would like to, personally, I would like to know if they've had litigation with a former employer. That's really it. I don't care about their divorces, and I understand that if you do a search, if we were to contract to have somebody do the search, the only information that I would want back, but again, you're,
No, I was actually.
and this is public information though, right?
Well, the question is not unlike the one that I'd like asked of the Collins Center. And I wonder if it's not more expedient to just ask the candidates on, directly. Are you a
idea.
party or have you been a party in a civil suit? Has judgment been placed against you any time over the past, I don't know, a period of time? Please describe. I mean, it might be as straightforward as that.
But would we want to limit it to job related? I mean,
Well, I don't-
divorce is- I'm divorced. I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
don't think that-
I don't see where that's entirely relevant, although child custody battles could become something that you would look
I
at,
think,
depending upon the conduct of the people involved.
I think we're going in a way too persnickety. I can see what you're concerned about, liabilities and so forth, and whether they've had problems, but I think that the Collins Center, who's been doing this for many, many years, and many communities, and actually, when I talk to some of the communities, there's a certain amount of confidentiality, and I think, since we had such extensive conversation with them, if anything like this had turned out, they would have not presented the candidate. So I have great confidence in them.
I don't believe the Collins Center did any search on this, or did any background checking on civil suits. And that's why I'm asking.
I didn't get I don't know.
One of
It's
the-
there's the three areas that they were engaged in.
Can we describe the type of civil suit that would be a red flag to us? Maybe that's a way to
Yeah.
approach it.
I think Diane,
Knowing what we know now,
limiting the scope to those complaints that would be either defended or brought forward
Prosecuting,
by the candidate in a work-related or not civic, what's the word I'm looking for? Municipal-related event.
Let me ask you, Steve, do you do this kind of check when you hire somebody?
Oh, yeah. I'd say, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is just the beginning. There's
It's
everything
also
from pee in a
different
cup to
It's
fingerprints.
it's
very
a
you know?
different industry too.
No, it's a highly regulated industry,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I am now finding out, just by my children approaching graduation, that this is fairly standard now, down to psychological testing, okay? Because frankly, it's very expensive to hire a person, and even equally expensive to fire that person. So,
Might I suggest that anybody can put $150 down and sue somebody else? The existence of a lawsuit means very little. It's the judgments
Agreed,
and court decisions that really count.
right.
That's right.
We had a situation where an auditor, for example, was found guilty of criminal tax fraud and put in jail. And then it went up on appeal, and there was a whole body of court decisions dealing with his conduct. You all might know who I'm talking about. That's one thing, but anybody can sue anybody in our
Sure.
system and say anything they want in those documents. our judicial system weeds those out much further along in the process.
Mhm.
So it's not, you may wanna look at only
Judgments.
judgments, cases lost.
Okay.
And, you know, we may want to, I mean, I don't know how the board feels, but, you know, maybe we only do this particular check when we have a final candidate and just say, you know, subject to. Or, you know, I think that's what we did with the last permanent town manager, was subject to background check, which I don't know if
The
that ever
result
took
would
place.
affect, could
Well,
possibly
right, I know,
affect the
that's the only,
decision,
that's the
so-
only
Yeah.
downside.
Yeah.
Yep, that is,
I don't
that is the
think-
negative.
I
I'm
of
gonna
it.
go
I
back
think
and
at
say-
this point, if we have like more checks, we should be doing it, you know, uniformly and I mean, I think we need to make a decision at the end of, one of our next two meetings.
Yes.
You know, which would either be the 16th or the 17th. We have an interview scheduled for the 16th and a regular board meeting on the 17th. It's 2 weeks from tonight. There should be plenty of time for this board to do its due diligence, and if we're gonna hire town council to review judgments and give us any notice of red flags among the three candidates, I think we need to know by the 16th, if they've turned anything up, or by the 17th.
Yeah.
The question is, how far do you wanna go back? Do you wanna go back to kindergarten, or, do we cut it off at,
Can you imagine
Well,
having
you
a civil
search
suit against you
college.
as a 6-year-old?
Stranger things have happened. Paul, would you, just kind of in the, how does this take place? Do you search courts? Would it be like a LexisNexis search through a particular court? Or is there a way to plug in, you know, Diane Kennedy and every court decision?
No, the hardest part of doing this would be the design
Yes,
of it. There are some courts that aren't computerized,
that's what I thought.
and so this will never be 100%.
Sure,
And we have found that sometimes courts one county over will be computerized, this county won't be, so at this difference of 5 miles, you can access one court and get whatever they have, but you can't get the other one unless you personally go there.
right,
Personally going to the courthouses is a very labor-intensive and expensive proposition.
especially since they're all out of state.
So then the question becomes, the reason why I said I'd have to be a litigator to figure this out, you have to figure out what's the court with the most likely venue.
Right,
And then once you determine what that court is, usually there's a lower court for small matters,
Sure.
a medium court for medium matters, and a big court for
for
big
big
matters.
matters. And then there's the strategies about which lawyers, the lawyers will figure out which court they want to bring something to,
Right,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's federal court.
Yep,
And there's always federal court.
Yep.
And the rules of getting jurisdiction where you can do business in one state and reside in another state. So conceivably, somebody could get sued in California,
right,
even though they live in Rhode Island.
right,
But how likely is it that, you know, they were out in California, they did something bad,
right,
they may even been on a trip,
right,
caused a riot or a ruckus, building blew up, but we wouldn't be able to find that.
Yep.
Because we wouldn't look in California, but we try to figure out where does the person reside, look at courts in that area, where did they work, look at courts in that area. And then access their database for those particular courts, and then use the names that we would have of the 3 finalists,
mhm,
and see if there was a hit.
mhm,
And then when you get a hit, if it comes up, you know, small claims or a parking ticket or that kind of stuff, you make a judgment as to what ones do you actually wanna look at.
right,
And then you print out the docket sheets, which is what they all have
mhm,
at most. They don't usually have the complaints, the briefs and so on.
right,
But if in the midst of all this, you find you know, $1 million judgment for violation of civil rights, then you actually want to go to the court, get the complaint, get the briefs, find out what it was all about.
Could we keep the scope at, find out if there are these dockets, you know? I mean, if you were to go in and find that there was a, you know, a case for whatever, somebody was being sued for sexual harassment or civil rights violations or something. I mean, that in and of, I don't even care what the end result is on that, you know? I mean, maybe the judgment, but not necessarily the details.
You usually can't get those. Those are usually
You'd
like
have
the
to go
Mass
there.
Commission Against Discrimination, and they won't disclose pendency of cases. And unless somebody appeals, it won't get into the court system. So,
Well,
and they're not computerized.
But also people can be accused and be
Sure.
innocent.
Oh, absolutely,
Well, I
absolutely.
think, again, what we're talking about is
Judgment.
judgments. And I believe it may be reasonable to simply do a, if you will, a cross-insurance by identifying the relatively limited scope of judgments you want to view, and very simply asking, frankly, asking the one that we might make an offer to, or would make the offer to simply disclose whether or not he has had judgments made against him, and if so, please name them. Cross-reference it with the research that's been done. If there's one missing, you can look into it.
Agnes, you've had your hand up for a while, off and on. What,
Yeah, Agnes McCann, 104 Dome Street. I just wanted to ask the board to consider a couple of things on the legal. Agnes McCann, 104 Dome Street. On the idea of searching for a judgment, I just would ask you to consider what do you imagine you can reasonably really find, having even found a judgment? You won't have access, as Paul has so well described, you won't really know anything but that there was a judgment and maybe what steps took place along the way. You won't, certainly aren't gonna take the time to, you know, go to the court and delve into the pleadings or the interrogatories or look at video depositions. I can't imagine personally, and having had a lot of experience with litigation, what you would discover that you wouldn't already have turned up in your interview. Maybe you should have asked them, each candidate, are there any cases pending or any
Right.
judgments against you? Maybe you still can. But I honestly think it would just be I don't see anything of value in the search that you're contemplating that would, you know, that would be definitive. And what would it indicate if you have a judgment against you? It doesn't mean you're a bad person for the job. It just might mean something.
You know, my
more
big
questions.
fear would be some kind of sexual harassment case or something that with a former employer. Just, you know.
What I would anticipate, well, what I would hope I would find is absolutely nothing. Okay? That's what I'd like to find. But if our top choice turned out to have 4 different judgments against that person, all which had as its thread the misuse of the position that that person had, and that thread took place over a course of 4 or 5 years, then it certainly would give me pause. At that point, I frankly would like to know more. I'm not ready to sit as judge and jury. I want to know more.
That takes me back to another point, which is that I understood when the Collins Center was here to present their case for doing the search, for being the vehicle for your search, that you were basically hiring them sort of as an HR consultant in that regard. And I remember them making it pretty clear what sorts of things they would be looking for and looking not to find. And I would think that they have a far greater capacity to make those kind of analyses and judgments than this board, with all due respect. I don't know what would make this board think it's better able to even evaluate a credit report in terms of what it would mean about the person taking the job. credit reports are personal, for one thing. And nobody gets a credit report on how well they did their job. They get a credit report on whether or not they paid their mortgage on time or whatever, or bankruptcy. But I just, to me, I understand your concern, but I think it's misdirected. If it means you're gonna do a lot of further checks.
Thank you.
You all right?
Thank you.
I don't want to be a judge and jury or do it. I just want to know that it's been looked into. That's really it. And what standards by which, in terms of the credit report, she's right. I have no, I don't know how to read a credit report. I just know
do.
my numbers are really good. But I do want to know that the Collins Center, because they did a credit report, I want them to say to me, this is the standard by which people pass, in our view. They did it, so they felt like it was important to do. I don't think they did any kind of background on judgments against, I just don't want, especially, all three of these candidates are from out of state. One of them primarily worked across the country. Like I said, I've Googled all of them and, I haven't found anything. I'm sure there's nothing there, but I feel, and I would, defer to council's recommendation, what's worth it. I don't want to go on a wild goose chase for something that we have no control over, but I want to know that we've done our due diligence.
I'm just very hesitant about the litigation search.
Mm-hmm.
I was just trying to think of an example that would be colorful and but make the point. And the one that I thought of while I was sitting here was that Amanda Knox, who's on trial in Italy for
Mhm.
murder. If I check the Norfolk Superior Court files, if I check the United States District Court of Massachusetts files, if I check the Rhode Island federal courts, state courts, I would never pick that up.
Right.
So,
She'd show up in the Cory check, though.
yeah. But she's not convicted. So-
She was first. She was.
It was reversed.
It was reversed.
Uh, And because she hasn't been found guilty yet, and she may not be, it may not get picked up. But the point I'm making is that for us to do the search, it would never be perfect. It
Right.
would never be complete. It would never fully satisfy you that there isn't something out there.
That's it.
So, to some extent, you may be better off asking them.
Yep.
And
That's
if they lie, that gives you a
Right.
basis.
fair enough.
So when you find out 6 months later, oh my God, then you have them pinned down. If you never ask and you rely on me to find a murder trial in Italy,
Right.
and I don't find it,
Right.
you don't have any relief against the person who
Right.
told you something that wasn't true.
Is that something that would go in a contract or would be a separate type of document?
Just ask them during the interview.
Well, we have two passed now.
Well, we did them. Could we send them an email to us? Or would we better to
I'd be
call
willing to call them.
Call,
if-
would we call them?
Well, I think you need an attestation to it if it's going to be part of a job offer.
Well, wouldn't it make sense, what if Diane called them, but if the finalists, willing to sign something at the point of selection, yeah?
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
in our case, it's simply a disclosure form. Check the box. Are you a party to a judgment against you in a civil case? Yes, please describe. No, nothing more needs to be said. Please sign below.
Well, I would suggest that be worded, you party to a civil case involving your governmental service.
To the restrictions necessary, that's fine. I'm just using it as an example because that which we sign annually is much more general.
I'm just trying to eliminate divorces
Right.
Absolutely.
and
Right.
automobile accidents and stuff like that.
On the matter of the contract draft that everybody has, you suggested that we consider just sending it out to all the candidates so they could familiarize themselves with it if they're so chosen. Does that, how's, the board's had 24 hours to think about it, what do they think?
I think it's a pretty
Yeah.
boilerplate contract, and I think that it might help things along in the negotiations if they've had a chance to look at it and think about it. And, we're not, it's not an offer, it's not
Right.
there's no money involved. As best I can remember, the benefits and whatnot are prescribed by the bylaws.
And
Is that-
also-
the one concern that I have is we've got one more interview to go. And,
But we would be sending it to him too.
that's the point. The one thing I would rather get from the interview is, from each of these interviews is a candid response to everything. Under the guise of looking at the contract, if it in any way blunts the enthusiasm of our final candidate, or that candidate sees a sticking point in the contract, it begins to redirect their conversation. And I don't think, frankly, I
So
don't think
what
that's
if it
right.
happens after the 16th?
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
No issues with that. I
Yeah.
just,
Well, at that point, we might as well just wait and give it to the one we choose.
It's, even a day's advance on something like that is useful. And if, if the board wishes to send it to the two that have already completed the interview with the caveat that this is not an offer,
Yeah,
that's separate. I just, that's my concern.
That makes sense. Is that standard practice, Paul? No?
No, but
So,
usually you appoint somebody subject to doing a contract and sometimes doing additional background checks.
right.
And then you, then get into the contract. But if I recall, I put no money into the contract, so they're gonna be looking, holding up to the light.
So what's the,
Where's the meat?
so I guess that begs the question, what's the point? If it is boilerplate, which it is, so no harm,
Yeah.
no foul in a way, but what's the point of sending it since there is no real meat there? And it's not a standard practice kind of thing, and, you
for
know.
me, this has been a long road to get to just where we are. It seems
Sure.
like anything I can do to even save 3 days
I know.
of something, I want to take it, so, which we can come back to, kind of like we have a bunch of stuff going on, we might as well get to the other one that's out there, which is kind of just what our selectmen due diligence should be in communicating with the communities, and what type of experience you had, Paul, in your community. You just went through a town manager search recently. Can you tell us a little bit about what some of the stuff your selectmen did?
Well, I think that's where the rubber meets the road. Everything that has been done by your consultants and your interview process leads to a point now where you all have to make a personal decision. And every person, every selectman is different. I represent all 1,180 selectmen in the state, and I've talked to many different people who feel different obligations or responsibilities about what they want to do. I think so I really can only speak for myself, what I would do. And what I would do would be to talk to people where the person worked. And again, my experience is if you say, and I want off the record information, what are you willing to say to me, and will it ever be repeated? Selectman to selectman, for example.
Mhm.
You're likely to learn a lot of the color, the flavor, the atmosphere. Is a person easy to deal with, or are they hard to deal with? Stuff like that you'll be told. If you don't do that, it's not likely that information will ever come to you any other way. You can't believe everything that you get on Google. I mean, if we Googled ourselves, you'll see all kinds of stuff out there. A lot of it is not accurate. So, no, in our system, anybody can say anything to a reporter or to a blog. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the truth. So to some extent, each of you have to make a decision about how much homework you want to do. And some won't want to do much, and some will want to do more. And those that want to do more, the best, most productive way to do it is to talk to people who've worked with the candidate.
You can't do it though by the telephone, you have to do it in their place.
Well, I've done it by telephone, but
You've done it by telephone.
I know, the Collins people are a great believer in going there in person.
Yeah.
I've done my homework on the phone. But I come into contact with so many different selectmen all the time that it's
easier.
for me to do it on the phone.
Fortunately, yeah, we have these three out-of-state candidates, so it's a little more difficult, than,
Well, most people who hold elective office love to talk.
that's, indeed.
So if we went on their town websites, we would find the names of the elected officials
Yes.
and other people that we might be interested
Google.
in speaking with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And call them, obviously, it would have to be at their work numbers.
yeah, no, it's happened the other way around. If people have called me about candidates and asked me what I thought about particular candidates. And again, if you think you're talking on the record where it might end up in the press, you are going to be very much standard.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
It's funny, the last search, remember, we got anonymous letters
Yeah.
from both of our finalists. I probably had, I think, 2 letters, typed, sent from other people in other towns, and not necessarily all bad either, but we haven't heard anything on these guys, which is good.
No.
The Google, 20 pages of Googling has turned up nothing.
Nothing.
So that's good
Nothing
news.
whatsoever.
That's a good news. We're in good shape. The question is that it's just the mechanics, because what we've talked about before is we don't want all 5 of us calling up all 5 selectmen in New Hempstead, New York, for example. So we need to figure out sort of how to march forward.
But just remember that anybody who is a leader will also have detractors.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So
we know
when
that.
you call up somebody and they say, well, they're no good because you know,
Right.
they insisted on putting that development, right
Absolutely.
in
My backyard.
in my backyard.
Right.
And they go on
Is it
and
in your
on.
backyard?
Anybody who's good is gonna have a pretty good group of
Right.
people who don't like them, as well as people who do like them. So you need to see beyond who likes whom and just find out what did they do, what did they accomplish, how did it get done.
So you suggest government people, that's really, or if you know, can find out Senate. Some of them have been very active with, 2 of those have been very active with local and nationally elected officials, congressmen, so those may be good sources. But so is somebody who runs the sewer plant too.
Well, I wouldn't go just with people they list as references.
No,
Do we even
never
have
did
those?
this for MAPC.
Where Tracy has requested.
When we had.
Oh, the references, good.
When we hired David,
Um,
'cause I was involved with that.
Well, nobody's gonna give you a
It
bad
turned out
reference.
to be pretty good.
It was a very good
That's right.
pick, wasn't it?
Okay, so it seems like we've hashed out a lot of stuff. The one we kind of need to circle back to is that civil litigation question. How how do we resolve that?
I think Paul's suggestion was that self-disclosure might actually be our best approach.
Yes, I think legally.
Okay,
that should
so we
be-
agreed as a board to just,
Where I might help is if they identify, oh yeah, I was a defendant in a, big civil rights lawsuit and we had to pay $625,000, but here's my explanation. At that point, after you listen to the explanation, I might be able to help by getting a copy of the actual court decision.
There is
And
something
verify
there.
it. Yeah.
About that.
Well, how do we do this? I don't know we should do this publicly.
Was Diane gonna
I'm,
call? I
I'm,
mean,
No, it's
I'm
all
willing to
public
just
record.
call them and
You're
have it a
willing to do
quick,
that?
objective conversation and just say, we spent a lot of time talking about this, it's just a concern.
yeah, okay.
Well, I don't- yeah, I mean, it's,
If-
from my
if you feel
perspective,
comfortable.
this is, it's not a concern with the individuals at all. It's a simple matter of doing our
Cover the
duty.
bases, yeah.
Yep, covering the
No, I
bases,
agree.
making
I
sure
just
that
didn't
we've
know
looked.
how we would do something.
No, well, I mean, again, at the, assuming that we're to hire someone out of this, at the, that, if we've done the work in advance and asked the question, then that person that we're about to hire, I think we work with Paul, craft an addendum to the contract that very simply asks for disclosure. That becomes our, that disclosure should be structured in a way that it gives us some legal protection if it turns out that the disclosure is incomplete or false.
So if I were to call these people and just ask, friendly conversation, what do I do with whatever information I get?
Hey, what didn't show up on the court report?
Tell me the
Well,
real
hopefully
scoop.
you're not gonna have any.
I hope not.
Yeah.
Let's,
Yeah,
let's,
that's the
let's
best-
just assume that, right?
All right, so I would
That's an
suggest
issue.
that if you do turn something up, it would be a conversation with Paul on.
Mr. Durensis?
Yeah,
Okay,
okay,
Fair
and
enough.
then sort out if it needs further delving into.
Okay.
Okay.
Remember, just being sued,
I,
and even having a judgment against you,
Mm-hmm.
there are even some of your boards here in town have had judgments
Mhm.
overturning their
absolutely,
decisions.
Mhm.
yes.
When judges look at things, they see things perhaps differently than a town board does. That doesn't mean that the person's bad or that the person's not competent. In fact, you hope that somebody will learn from things. So if they did lose a case at some point,
We just wanna know about it.
So, but you would be asking questions, you would put that little addendum in, and I forget what you said, Paul, in regard to municipal, remember, for the statement
in
that,
connection with their employment.
Their employment,
the municipal employment, so you wouldn't,
Steve is suggesting we put it on as in the
Oh.
contract with the schedule attached. That will come later.
yes,
No,
that
I-
will come
no, I-
That's a-
I
from
agree
one
with that. I
person.
was just thinking that Diane, if she calls up and she says, have you been,
Yeah,
in a civil, and the guy's thinking, she want to know about
My
my
neighbor,
divorce, or
right,
my
or-
neighbor
right,
sued me over,
right. My cows got loose in the street and,
You have cows?
no, but I know somebody who does. Anyway. Okay,
Okay. Is there anything else?
Alright, so, I mean, just so that I'm clear, you're gonna contact the Collins Center?
Yeah,
On the parameters, not the specifics
right.
of the credit
The
check.
criteria, yeah.
The
Diane's
metrics.
gonna call the three candidates and ask regarding civil litigation in relation to their municipal employment. And we still have to determine who's gonna call about whom.
so,
Well, an easy one would be who will call the references. I mean, somebody could take that or split it up, and then there's the beyond the references. Does everybody wanna take a piece of everything, or?
Well, I kind of think we should each maybe take one. I don't know how we should do it because we might be talking to the same people and,
Well, that's what we're trying to avoid.
yeah.
Well, sometimes it doesn't hurt if two people talk to somebody at different
I know
points.
five of
They-
us do.
Well, not five at once, but sometimes someone will get something that someone else didn't, just
Mhm.
because of
Mhm.
how they come across the tone or
Or they
I'm-
give it-
relationship. So I'm not that worried about
Well, I'm not
us
at all.
running into, to that.
Because I think if there'd been something really bad, they never would have been our finalists. I think these guys, I think a lot of them are maybe looking at other jobs, so these people have been really.
I am,
I mean,
go ahead,
I'm
Karen.
I'm sorry, Steve. I'm of an inclination that, you know, when you ask people to give you references, nobody's gonna give you the name of somebody who's gonna say something bad
you,
about them.
of course.
That's just my personal point of view. I mean, that's not to say that in speaking to the person, you might not elicit something else, but.
Right. Paul's point about making off-the-record inquiries are, I mean, it's stuff that we commonly do when we're hiring someone new. The other thing we'll do is to go to a reference and say, and by the way, who else should I talk to? Because the iterations down the line typically can expose different viewpoints that you wouldn't get otherwise. If you're thinking of dividing up the tasks by the nature of the contacts as opposed to geography, then I'd suggest that, you know, one structure of contacts are those in and around previous employment, elected officials, other department heads, surrounding town managers, things like that. And then separately, of course, references. If you're thinking about doing it geographically, I will tell you that I'm traveling next week. I will be in New York, so I have a capacity to cover
Oh.
that area. I wasn't planning on being on Long Island, but but New York,
I
yes.
It's only a stone's throw away. I was looking
The
at it.
stone's throwing a slow ride.
Well, I actually am willing to go to Long Island. I have a friend who lives in New Hampstead, who
Oh.
used to live in Cohasset.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
Where is she, in Manhasset now?
she's in wherever Chris Senior lives. What town was that? I can't
Well, in
remember.
any
I
case.
can't remember.
Oh, yeah,
but
it was
I,
a village of North
yeah.
Hempstead, yeah.
Anyway, I would be willing to go there
I
next
have it
week.
right, yes.
I could go down to Rhode Island. 'Cause
Port
I-
Washington.
I know
Port
the-
Washington.
I know
They
the
live in Port
town.
Washington.
I've been, because I did genealogy and went around. I had dealings with the town clerk and one of the counselors, but I
Yeah.
can't remember them anyways.
Long and short of it is, I'm relatively flexible. I just, I would like to move this along so we can get it divvied
Yeah.
up and go.
All right, so I can do some stuff on the phone.
And I might end up doing,
I mean,
Something
maybe
at
the
the
easiest thing
phone.
for me is just call all the references on everybody.
Okay.
yeah.
And then,
The references they're providing?
yeah, on all
Okay.
three, and
Alright.
then, so when those come in, give them to everybody.
Give them to me.
So
Yeah, if we
Grady
get the
and
references.
Chris already provided references.
Yeah, and ask Grady for his,
good.
yeah.
I think they already provided.
Oh, okay, right, yeah,
Well,
right.
But
Somebody had
Grady's-
provided one.
Grady's, we just checked those were professional organizations.
They
They weren't
individuals.
individuals.
No, they were just places.
thought
that
he
were
had
involved.
people's names.
So then I could have missed it. I could have missed it, Tracy.
Okay, and then I know Steve had forwarded a
He
bunch of
forwarded,
things
yeah.
after
Yes.
the fact.
That's
Yeah,
right.
So Grady's is on here. It has all names.
Oh,
I don't
that
know, you tell me. I'll call if not.
I didn't.
Oh, I'm not sure I have that sheet.
I don't have that.
I don't have that
These
sheet. I
names?
have,
I've never seen this.
I don't know.
this
No,
sheet.
I left my
no, I
stuff.
don't
I think it came with the resume. Is the
Yeah,
back
I
of the
don't, but I
resume?
didn't
I
get that.
printed it off an email.
Really? Huh?
Well, I didn't have it.
I mean, it doesn't, I mean, I'm not gonna call you.
Yeah.
Fred's gonna be calling you,
Yeah.
but that's not it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's not on the back of this one, so maybe,
You didn't get it either.
No.
No, we didn't get that.
I know, but I didn't give anybody references. I didn't
Oh.
give anybody this.
Oh.
okay, all right, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, that's why we don't
That
have it,
explains
yeah.
it.
I'd lost my
No,
mind.
You should have got it yourself. I got it via email.
Right.
I got what you-
No,
No?
no. Well, remember though, that the request was to send them to you.
Okay, all right. Fair enough.
And
Well,
then
let me
just
just say
send it to
this,
you?
when I
Yeah.
printed it out,
Okay,
but it's white. It was white on paper, so.
okay. I'll figure it out.
Okay.
Everybody will get it.
So that's Grady. What about the other two?
So
We have
Steve
two-
Hartford, I know
Yeah,
I
we got
forwarded that
those.
to everybody.
But,
And, I think last night we said it to Chris, and he said
And
he
he
would
said
forward
he
it,
was
no
gonna,
problem.
yeah, he's
But I
gonna bring
didn't
it
get
up.
anything yet.
Yeah, okay.
So I guess the only other thing, is there anybody that can make a field trip to Rhode Island?
I won't be able to, but I could do
I-
some telephoning.
I'm,
Do you want to do Long Island? I can do New York.
I-
mean,
I can hit either place. I've actually have I have a client in Westerly, so I can make a personal stop there as well.
If it's not an inconvenience, and then that would just leave,
It's hugely inconvenient, but I hope
Narragansett.
to hold it over your head, so.
it's good to have that.
No, well, Westerly was what I was referring to, but I can,
Are they right near? They're right near each other.
They are
Westerly
No.
and
close,
Narragansett,
yeah.
right?
well, yeah, I mean, it's to the extent
Rhode
that-
Island.
to the extent that anything's close in Rhode Island, yeah, they're at opposite ends of the south coast, okay? Westerly is down by the Connecticut border, Narragansett borders
but there's only
basically
4
the
towns
corner.
across the bottom. I have a county map here somewhere.
No, there are only 4 towns, it's just, it's
There-
Rhode Island, there is
yeah.
no straight way to get there.
Okay, got it, yeah.
No, you can do it, that's
Yeah.
neither here nor there, it's just they're in slightly different spots.
Yeah, okay.
So I guess the next question is, should we, just in terms of, we have the references, and to Karen's point,
Yeah.
they're the ones that are gonna speak glowingly about these people, and you're gonna take care of those.
Yeah.
And then just, do we just wanna randomly, make one call each to each candidate, and maybe we won't end up calling the same person?
To the candidates.
To the candidates, somebody in their town, somebody in their previous town. So like you might call random selectman number 3.
Oh, I'm
from
going.
Westerly, Rhode Island.
Yes, that's fine. I was actually going to go scratching around and
I
ask to
might
have a cup
call
of
the head
coffee
of
with them.
DPW or
So,
something, right?
Yeah.
But just,
Okay, so the way to divide it up would be, does somebody want to take like a whole town, or do we want everybody taking a piece of each town? If there's a 5-member board,
Well, it might be interesting to split up the telephone calls. I mean, if somebody were to talk to the councilman or whoever, you know,
for
for
each
each
candidate,
candidate, somebody else might talk to the state officials, somebody else might talk to their peers in abutting towns,
it's a good idea.
or department heads.
or
yeah.
department heads.
heads. There's
So
5.
that's,
Okay.
All right, so
Okay.
let's see if we can divide that up. There's elected officials
So that would be like,
above them.
yes, they're
there's-
council members or whatever.
There's the municipal elected, there's department heads, and then there's surrounding community
Peers.
peers.
That's 5, right?
I've got 4, but you said 5 before.
Oh, you're
What
right,
was the
that's
other
4.
one?
I have elected and municipal, department heads, and peers and surrounding.
officials of the council.
I tell you, I tried to look that up in Rhode Island, and their website for the state is not very user-friendly. I had better luck in New York. Huh?
Hmm?
State
Yeah.
officials in Rhode Island, yeah, I mean, the State House website is not very effective to
No.
figuring out who's who.
I agree with you, because I was using some of the internet. and
In
I
New
had a
York, I had
terrible
no problem
time.
finding out who they were, but,
Just to move it along, can I volunteer to do the surrounding town
sure,
peers?
yes, yep.
Okay.
I'm happy to work with the local officials, the local elected officials.
Well, I can do some of the municipal, because I have actually dealt with some of them down there.
Well,
Steve,
you
you
can
said the
split 'em up.
municipal?
Yeah, I dealt with
Yeah.
some people in
I'll take the
Westerly.
elected officials above,
Meaning like state people?
state
Okay.
senator, state
Yeah,
rep.
so then
I'll,
I'll just,
I'll
Yeah.
do
I'll take the
municipal. I'll do some municipal.
Okay.
Okay, and we need
Wait a minute.
department heads.
I'll do department heads. So I'm confused.
We're all confused.
Welcome aboard.
Alright, so Fred's
I
doing
volunteered, but I
train.
state
gotta-
All
elected
aboard.
officials.
This is in.
Steve and Martha are doing the municipal elected officials,
Yeah.
is that right?
Yeah,
I'm doing department heads and Diane's doing the
Peers.
Surrounding
and the
peers.
surrounding peers.
Now, is this all 3?
Yes.
yeah.
What are you doing in New York? You're just.
Oh, I get input now? I just want to check the rules. You know what, I'll deal with Long Island directly. I'm happy to just, yep.
Do you want us to leave?
It's a 7-member board there, and there are a variety, as you may remember, there are 31 different entities that, so,
Remember, there's a long-time elected supervisor
that's right, as well.
that just retired.
So I'm,
So are you gonna do it alone, or are we
sure,
gonna do
I'll do that one alone.
So you're gonna,
Yeah.
you're gonna do,
So I'll do the.
I'll
municipal
report
of-
back to
of
you
the
in
other two.
writing as to what I
Yeah.
all right,
find.
so Martha's gonna do,
Wesley and the other Narragansett.
Yeah.
all right, so you're doing Long Island and Martha's doing Rhode Island. Can we make this any more complicated?
I think,
Tom could
That
make
was
things
really
I think we got
complicated.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Well, we can't discuss it at the restaurant or something, we have to discuss it here, so.
Mm-hmm.
So is this going to address everybody's concerns? I mean, are we gonna be in a position, you know, unless something untoward comes up during the phone calls or something like that, do you think we'll be in a position to move forward, or are there gonna be further information that is gonna be required?
I don't think so.
I mean, I'd rather
I
deal with
think
it
I'm
all
good.
now.
As long as the DNA check comes back, okay?
Yeah.
If I could,
Yeah.
Is that like the DNR?
my experience with hiring is that people will drop out because they'll get other jobs.
Mhm.
And so you really have a very limited period of time. And when they get other job offers, they are gonna look over here and see, how likely am I to be the finalist? And if they don't have a good feel that they'll be a finalist, that they're still 1 out of 3, then they'll take the other job. And so the selection will be made for you,
Mm-hmm.
because you will end up with one candidate. Everybody else will take other jobs. So the point of all that is that you really should do this fast. You've been at this for a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think the general census is that we would like to make a decision on the 17th, if not the 16th. Which is
Agreed.
still too far away for my liking, but
Mine as well. I mean, I don't know if there's
Earlier.
any options for that third interview. That's the thing I'm most worried about, is that seems so far off.
it seems far off, and, you know, the advice to us was to hold the interviews close together. I don't know, if we have a quorum and we have the vice chair to be chair, could we have 2 people participating remotely?
In what?
I mean, I can't remember what the open meeting
Well,
law
I
says.
think the issue is I can participate remotely. I don't know if Steve has got the availability. but-
When?
Well, that's what
We
we
do.
do, we eliminated all next
Could
week.
Monday be an
Yeah.
option? Monday, the whatever it is, the
The ninth?
9th?
I thought initially it was Thursday, he said he was available, but then.
This
there was an issue.
Thursday.
There was an issue, but then,
Thursday,
then at
I-
our meeting yesterday, we eliminated the whole next week because
Yeah.
both Steve and Fred are traveling. But if we could do it, I would be a lot more comfortable, I think the candidates would be too.
If you have a quorum here in place, and you have a chairman here in place to conduct the meeting, then you can have remote participation from the others.
It's not ideal, but
I can tell you right now, for Monday, Tuesday, for sure, I am booked solid next week. And that's well into the evenings,
yeah, I understand.
okay?
What about Wednesday? What about you, Fred?
Well,
Don't know.
I'm open, I'm just,
You-
you know, I'm thinking at, like, if, you know, is this gonna speed up the due diligence, and I'm not, you know, I'm seeing no matter what, we're making a decision on the 17th. And so I'm thinking, you know, what am I losing by not seeing
Right.
and reading
Being-
all the stuff
absolutely,
going
right,
on, and I'm
it-
losing
it
a
is-
lot, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, I'm willing to do it, it puts Grady at a little bit of a disadvantage, I
Yep.
think, with
No, but
me.
we can get the information before we talk to them.
Yeah.
I just, I'd caution everybody, I understand Paul's concern. I caution everybody to remember that the consultant also pointed out to take your time and do it right.
That's right, no, I agree.
And,
It's
and
too
I-
bad that Grady couldn't come tomorrow night, and then we
It's a,
could have
it's a,
filled-
it's,
It's the way the cookie crumbles
Yep.
sometimes.
Yep.
You know, he just was unavailable
Well,
until.
he's available Thursday and Monday, but that was.
Okay.
Is it,
Well, the good news is if
is
we're,
it kosher to ask the candidates to give us a first refusal?
No.
Can't, they have to do
Can't do
what's
that.
best for them, yeah.
well, no, I mean, you could certainly, I mean, I don't know if under municipal law you're allowed to do this, but you can certainly in the hiring practice maintain that they are, remember, you're a finalist. We are sincerely interested. We have one more interview to do. Just the way it falls. Please let us know if your circumstances are in the midst of change.
Well, you could have, why did the chair send an email
Well,
or something?
you know, Diane's in a unique position to be talking to each of them, to maybe work that into the conversation,
If-
saying,
if-
look, we feel really bad about the scheduling
somewhat delay, yep,
snafu, but, is there anything we should know
yep,
that might come up before the 17th? We're firmly committed to
To
make a
making a
decision on
decision.
the 17th.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just see what they say. They can say,
Right.
you know, I'm uncomfortable discussing that, or,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm, you know.
when I called them after,
One
on
person
Saturday.
did tell you that.
Right.
Yeah, they were up for another interview, yeah.
Yep. And, but they were all, you know, very forthcoming.
Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
interested
This is
in.
the other interview
After
One of the
special
th-
town meeting, when I called to say that we weren't gonna, we hadn't whittled the candidate pool down and it was one of the ones that we didn't end up choosing, actually, that said he was,
A candidate somewhere else.
a candidate somewhere else. So, you know, I'll just express that we're very interested and we're committed to making a decision as soon as possible. And I think the fact that we're gonna be calling all of their buddies
Yeah,
and the people that they've worked with, the word's gonna get out, and that's, you know, they're gonna know that we're doing our
working it,
work
yeah.
and we're making it happen.
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
specifically letting them know
Let's
that
move
you're
this along.
committed to making a decision on the 17th might help.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's, yeah, we just said that, yep, yep, I'll say that.
Did we say that to, Mr. Senior?
No, because we didn't know. that.
Well,
We didn't
I
know.
did, say that we were, our next meeting was the 17th, after tonight,
But we
so.
didn't say.
But Diane's gonna talk to him.
She's gonna talk to him.
I will, and
Yeah.
I will let them know that the
Yeah.
decision will be made by the
I
17th.
mean, it really wasn't firm until tonight that
Mhm.
we're kind of heading down to that road.
Mm-hmm, okay.
Okay, so,
Or maybe you could even say the 16th or the 17th.
Yep,
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
That'll make me even feel better.
Yep.
But
Will
if
make
you
me feel
can't,
better.
At the latest, the
yeah,
17th,
but
yeah.
of course.
Okay, so, any other issues on this? I'm wondering if I'm trying to wonder, is there anything that unanticipated that might come up that the chairman would need authorization to make a decision on? I don't see anything, so I think,
on this
on this matter, yeah,
No.
that would move
What
things
about-
along.
What
Well, I
about
mean,
fall? Would you see anything?
Oh, the next part where you
God, please.
needing to communicate would be over the terms of the contract, how much you're gonna pay them.
Fred, the only
Hey.
thing I could see would be if Collins, I don't anticipate that they would, but if Collins were to come back and say, no, we're not gonna divulge the parameters, then we're back at square one.
Well,
I think they would.
I
Yeah.
can't imagine that they would, but
I anticipate getting something, yeah.
Well, they might say something, nothing came up and not be specific. And then that
well,
would
no, but
solve
Steve
it.
is looking for more specifics.
Yeah, I
Well,
understand
I'm
that.
gonna ask them what their metrics and
Just- yeah.
criteria and
Yeah,
parameters
yeah,
were,
okay.
and, can they delineate to the extent they can, and let's see what they have, and we'll have to judge it then. And it will end up being a judgment of the whole board, and
Right.
some may be satisfied, and it is what it is, so, if we're ready to move on, I think, we can let Paul hit the road. Any other questions for Paul?
No, I would like Paul, just for, if we're going right into selectman comment period.
Yeah,
There is one thing I just want him
Okay, yeah.
around for if
all right.
possible, sorry.
Selectman comment, Martha?
Yeah, because no, I lost it. A week or so ago, yeah, here it was. I went to the old-fashioned harvest supper. This is the ecumenical Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And they had a new format this year. They had call to prayer and a few sayings, and then they had the supper, and then they had a little religion afterwards. And it was very, very nice. We got a bread they bake, and we use that on Thanksgiving.
Oh, nice.
And it's very nice because you have people from all the churches, and everybody just sits any old place. And there was 170 people there, and I think,
Wow.
and I really enjoyed it. In another year, I think it would be very
You're hosting?
to go to it, because I like things that are ecumenical. I like a mix of people,
Mhm.
and it was very, very satisfying.
Great.
Excellent.
And there were thousands of dessert, and I guess they gave the stuff that was left over to the pantry.
Very nice.
It was nice. And, let's see, I went to the historical commission last night, and they again need 2 new members. In fact, they need 3 because one of the members is very ill. She's in hospice.
Ooh.
So,
Hmm.
and I saw Erin, and she said she put something in the paper, but I think there are lots of people that would be interested, and they just don't know, they don't see our meetings, or they don't read the paper. We always used to have a good talent bank, and I'm not sure we have it anymore, because a lot of people that now are working, but they're too busy and so forth, and I think there should be a call to do a little bit. You know, they complain about the government, I say,
Get
"You wanna help?"
involved.
Oh, no, I'm too busy. And government can't be busy in a democracy. Everybody has to help, no matter, even if it's little. So I hope we can get more people for the talent bank, just in general, for all our banks. It's helpful. Okay?
Thank you.
Karen?
I really had nothing, but Martha reminds me that I think we're still looking for a treasurer for the cable advisory committee. So if there's any CPAs or accountants out there that are interested, we could use you.
Okay, Diane?
Just 2 things. One is, ZBA wants to come before us on the 17th if they could, just because they have somebody resigning that they wanna, talk to us about a new appointment.
Okay.
And then we received this, Paul, this is where I wanted to ask, we got a, email today from Senate Council regarding the Town Manager Act, A to C, and asking for the board to vote that change. So, and they asked for us to do that as soon as possible, so I don't know whether we could do that tonight or whether we have to wait till the 17th. Did you get that email?
I did get that email. I did not look at it, but I'll be happy to
It's
look at it.
We have to- we have to
Patrick
vote it,
O'Connor.
And it has to be stamped and sworn or
Sealed.
something. So
Yeah,
I
did that
didn't.
come up on-
When-
I
do we
have
have-
it, if not on the
topics on
agenda.
reason not
Yeah, we
anticipated.
could, well, why don't we amend the agenda and discuss it?
Okay,
I'll
thank
have-
you.
I'll-
Thank you
let-
for reminding me.
Under topics not reasonably anticipated by the chairman 48 hours in advance of the meeting, we got an email this afternoon from the state senate. Do I have a motion to amend the agenda to discuss it and possibly take action?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Agenda's agended. I mean, the
The
agenda's
agenda
amended.
is Are we
It's
finishing,
been a long day.
we finishing the comment period?
We'll come back to that. We'll stop and kind of in this and then we'll finish, yeah. So, why don't we continue the comments? We'll kind of be doing 2 things at once. Paul's gonna read that, Are you done with your comments?
Yes.
Okay,
So
Steve,
let's
go ahead.
continue selectman
All right,
comment period,
all
right?
One item is lighthearted, but serious nonetheless for the town. 9 o'clock Saturday morning,
Oh, yes.
the boys' high school football team plays in the Super Bowl at Gillette Stadium, so anybody that has nothing better to do on Saturday morning, turn out. If you've never been there, it is really, it's really something to see. And frankly, it's a point of great pride anytime any of our athletes or artists make it to the pinnacle of their high school career. It's worth cheering. So, excuse me. Second thing is more serious. Fred, you and I have had this conversation separately, but I'd like to alert the board to what I see as the other piece of consideration from this long process of hiring a town manager. And that is that whoever we choose and accepts, in all likelihood, won't begin the work that's in front of them until sometime after the first of the year, based upon conclusion of contractual negotiations. And remember, whoever it is moving. They're moving here. So there are a number of things to consider. But probably the most important is that I think the board would agree that we want that person to succeed. And in order to best help that person succeed, we need a transition plan. They're coming in the midst of a budget period. They're coming in with projects, fairly substantial projects facing them in short order. And there is, at the moment, no defined transition plan. And it's not a simple job, even though we are a modestly smaller town than each of those that have been managed by our finalist candidates. There's an awful lot to learn in a very short period of time. And I believe that in order to give that person the greatest opportunity for success, we've got to really give some thought to how best to help that person move into that position in a relatively short period of time and succeed.
It's certainly something that should be an agenda item. It's been on my mind also.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, yeah.
I had some discussions with the town manager about a transition plan, and in fact have some proposals that the board might want to consider on that subject if you wanted to have an executive session at your convenience sooner rather than later. I have some thoughts to share along the lines that Steve has mentioned.
Well, and while the executive session might be necessary eventually to define what arrangements we might make, I think it's more important for the board at the moment, and I do mean like right now, and between now and the discussion, the public discussion of what that transition plan is to think about what it is that you want the plan to achieve. What's the goal? I mean, success for the new town manager, of course, is the ultimate goal, but in the meantime, what's the goal? If you think about it, whoever comes in here is coming in here, and let's say it's the second week of
Steve,
January.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
excuse me, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I'm really right on board with you on this. I'm just getting a little uncomfortable that this is selectman comment time and we're starting to get
Fair enough.
into discussion.
Fair enough. But let me wrap up my comments with the thought that if you agree with the idea and it becomes an agenda item, I'd like to have the discussion around what you want the plan, what each of you wants a transition plan to achieve. Okay?
Got it.
Yes, well, that wraps my comments. And my concern
So-
is, same as yours, time-wise, all of this stuff can easily slip away if we don't at least get it on the record.
Okay, so I'll look at fitting that in between.
Well, what about Paul's statement?
Paul was saying that he has some information that would come before us in executive, right?
But
Maybe we
Well-
wanna do that the same
Well,
night.
let me just propose that on the 16th and 17th, instead of trying to do just an interview on the 16th, that I shift around the business across both nights to try to even it out, and then in there include an executive session about a transition plan, okay, that we were going. And so I just need to know what your availability, Paul, is on either the 16th or the 17th.
Preferably the 16th.
Available on the 16th, but I'm not available on the 17th.
Okay.
That settles that?
Do you, and on the timing of it,
We have our
should be
interviews at
after the
6.
interview, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
7.
Are you flexible on the time? Okay, all right, so I'll be working on the agendas tomorrow. And, I plan to file it tomorrow because just to get it out there, and then we can adjust it, as soon as, anything that comes in and changes it, but, okay.
Okay.
I have no comment. I don't think we have any selectmen correspondence tonight. No minutes, right? And we already did topics not reasonably anticipated. Public comment.
I don't do those.
Okay, well,
Carol does them.
I think they were in our packet.
Public
last week.
comment?
Oh, we had this, it was on our packet, that the
Oh, right.
Stormwater Advisory Committee.
Read that.
Oh, for God's sake.
Is it, are there some minutes?
No.
Oh,
I think in last week's packet, we had the minutes from.
oh, thank you for reminding me of this. Yes, this is a notice that we were requested to read. The Stormwater Advisory Committee requests that any person who is experiencing flooding issues in the town of Cohasset to attend a hearing on December 11th at 7 PM at Town Hall. At that time, the committee will take information on any and all flooding issues. So that is December 11th. There's a hearing at Town Hall at 7 PM on flooding issues held by the Stormwater Advisory Committee. Thanks for reminding me of that. Okay, anything else? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Well, you're
No,
gonna take
we're
up the
gonna
amendment, the amended agenda?
The
Oh.
town manager act thing.
Do we have licenses to sign?
Paul, can we do that tonight, or do we need to,
Who's reading?
I mean, would this be better off, with an informal vote tonight and something signed, officially and sealed?
Well, here's the problem, the changes that the proposed draft motion to be made by Senator Headland refers to some language that's not in the attachment that was attached to
Oh,
it,
boy.
all the handwriting.
Okay, so this
Oh,
needs
I don't
more
know whose
research.
handwriting this is, so I'm trying to figure out.
It's fascinating. This is what they talk about watching sausages made at the legislature. If you saw that document, there's a lot of hen scratching on it.
Did that come with the memo?
Yeah, that was
Yes,
that was an
yeah.
attachment
Yeah,
on the
That was
email.
attached to it. It was just one page. It was a little bit out of context, so I couldn't quite follow what they were referring to
figure it out.
myself.
And on the screen, on the JPEG or the PDF form, there's two different color inks,
Yeah.
which probably didn't pink up, which means some of the
It's
changes
like
might
a
have been.
blue ink and another,
And a
there's two
black,
different
yeah.
people edited it.
So, I don't know if some of it was from House Counsel and it didn't need approval because it was just, grammatical. And he refers to some specific motion, which might be in that one document.
Well, no, the motion is the short document that,
Right, that's what I
the-
mean.
the Headland had
The
moved.
proposed motion is to strike the words or subsection C, but subsection C is not part of the bill that's before the legislature.
Oh.
What it is part of a rewrite. Senate Council loves to rewrite bills. Hardly any bill goes through, complicated bill without them rewriting. So apparently they rewrote the Town Manager Act. And that's what all these handwritings are.
So we have to.
We
back
never
that.
approved, we, the board, town meeting authorized you to authorize any changes. You never approved any of these changes. But the amendment that they've drafted,
It's just,
proposed, is an amendment to a version that is not before the Senate.
Okay, can we do
So,
this?
it
Can you
doesn't work.
clarify with the Senate what they're requesting with us? And if you can do that, prepare a document for the 16th that we can vote on, that we can have the seal of the town clerk.
Could I suggest that,
Yeah.
that the board authorize the chair to approve the final language rather than waiting until
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
16th so that I can
Yeah,
get this thing?
and you could do that
Yeah.
via, all right.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so we have a motion.
so moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, 5-0. Okay, I'll work with the, Paul on this. Anything else?
Can't think of it.
It's too early to end. Yes.
No, it's
I
not.
don't know, I
It's
feel like
not.
I've been here for 9 hours.
Were you gonna discuss the parking?
I've had a birthday.
Parking.
The parking, we
We
did
did.
discuss it, yeah.
What about it? What did you say?
It's on the agenda, in 2 weeks, but we discussed, the parking way, would like to have the police department come in with their proposal on some shorter term parking in the lot. And we also had a letter from the, Carriage House Nursery School, requesting that we consider an alteration on the 4 parking spots over here on the short street between, Highland Ave and North Main. And so we discussed that just,
Out of order.
yeah, a little bit out of order, because Paul had just come in and, we knew the town manager discussion would be a long one, so we took it just before that. And we're actually gonna be going through it much more fully on the 17th.
And, Rena, they, one of the things that, there was a group that met, I think yesterday or the day before. And some of them were, somebody from the Chamber of Commerce, Jen Oram is coordinating the group, so you might want to talk to her. And some of the doctors they have put together some preliminary recommendations, and they're meeting again, Monday, December 16th at 8:30 a.m. at the Cohasset Police Department. So,
Time 8:30
8:30 a.m. And what I believe they're planning to do at our next meeting would be to make recommendations specific to the town parking lot, to make some recommendations for maybe 4-hour parking in certain areas, or something that this board will have to approve, any kind of signage.
Well, before you automatically, Rena Carp, 91 South Main Street, before you automatically renew everyone's license, I'd just like to remind the board that all license holders must comply with the following conditions, not any, just all license holders. Number 2 says, parking shall be permitted in public areas provided that it does not cause an unreasonable increase in the number of vehicles parked in the area. This license is granted provided that all businesses' activities will not unreasonably interfere with traffic and parking, and further not create litter problems, public intoxication, or late-night noise in abutting residential neighborhoods. Now, the Red Lion Inn alone has a capacity of 800 people. I heard a complaint that people are complaining because commuters are parking in that lot. A couple of commuters aren't causing problems. That used to be a commuter lot. People actually wanted the train station there. It would be full of commuters all day. It used to be a bus parking lot. I've lived and worked in the village over 30 years, and it's almost impassable at times with the trucks and the parking problem. And if there's an elephant in the room with the parking, it's the Red Lion Inn, because they were supposed to provide 20 spaces for guests of the inn, which they've never delineated, and their employees are supposed to park someplace other than the municipal lot. And plus, you're gonna automatically renew their license, and they've caused a lot of public intoxication and noise problems also for us. So is it just a rubber stamp when you are gonna renew that license now?
No, we're having a hearing on the 7th.
But
Of
what about
January.
right now, tonight, aren't you renewing the alcohol?
We're taking licenses up on the 17th.
Yeah,
I thought it was on the agenda.
It is on the agenda, but no licenses were ready for us to approve, so it was skipped over.
No, you mentioned
At some
We
point we
did.
did. Yeah.
that. And also, so the 17th of December,
Yep.
because is there gonna be another hearing on the assault and battery case at the Red Lion Inn? That's
I'm,
what's
I'm,
going
I'm
on.
I'm gonna have to say it's out of order right now. We have, this is public comment. I know it's for stuff not on the agenda, but,
It's on the
It's-
agenda.
It's on the agenda.
well,
The-
what she just said is not on the agenda, so,
Oh, okay.
Is there gonna be another hearing on that?
we're in the middle of talking with
Noise,
town
and we don't
council
have
about
that.
we have several issues we're talking to town council about.
So there's no hearing set for that,
We're,
for the liquor license?
currently,
I'm just asking,
Yep.
because I came tonight for a noise, violation, and that was put off, so are we not gonna have a hearing on the other violations?
I'm in the middle of discussing it with town council. Any other public comment? Do you have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?